Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
So what's happening, man? How are you?
Everything's groovy as could be. I'm happy to be in Austin. I love it here, you know.
It's a fun place.
Yeah. I mean, I stay here, so.
Oh, do
yeah,
you?
Yeah. And I don't know. It's like it's just a special place in this country.
Yeah, I agree. It's perfect because it's like a blue city in a red state. It's like even the really kooky liberal people are pretty reasonable in comparison to like the kooky liberal people from California or New York.
Yeah,
It's balanced.
kooky liberals. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that lately.
Did you get a lot of that after Saturday Night Live? A lot of kooky liberals coming your way? That,
Yeah, it's a good transition.
that monologue was great, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of blowback, as
Yeah.
I knew I would, you know,
Yeah.
because
Because he told the truth.
well, yeah, it's just that you don't want to say anything negative about vaccines, which I didn't. What I was talking about in that monologue was really about profiteering.
Yeah.
Okay, so World War II, necessary. Everyone could say that was a necessary war. Let's say that this war on microbes was a necessary war, right? Why is anyone profiteering?
Yes.
Why did Pfizer get to make $100 billion in 2021?
Right.
Anyway,
Why did the government profit off of it? Why did
the
was
profiteering
Moderna?
of war is just wrong. Like, okay, if you say that it has to be, there's conflicts happening right now I disagree with, but I'm wondering, why are people making money off of it?
Right.
You know, even if you think you have a legitimate vantage point from the other side of it. Why
Yeah.
did someone get to make so much frickin' money off of it?
Yeah. It's the dirtiest aspect of human beings. We'll find a way to profiteer off of everything.
Yeah.
Everything and anything, even if it's just. And they'll prolong just things in order to make more profit.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you know that, Richard Nixon knew it was imperative that the war continue, the Vietnam War, back before he got elected,
Yeah.
He didn't want that to get settled.
Yeah.
And there's a great phone call. I don't know if you've listened to any of Johnson's phone calls, Lyndon Johnson.
What
But
phone call?
There was a phone call he had with Nixon, saying, "Hey man, you're going against the peace," because he was trying to get a peace to go before the '68 election, right? Which he eventually just bailed out of anyway because he could see he was going to lose it, Johnson. I don't, maybe you haven't.
No, I've never heard
thought
that
about
conversation
this,
between Nixon and
It's an
Johnson.
incredible conversation, and Nixon's like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that. I would never, And of course, he was doing that. He was
Yeah.
subverting the peace process, in the same way that they wanted to make sure Carter didn't get those, those guys
Iranian
released
hostages, yeah.
in
Yeah.
Iran.
Yeah. I always wondered about the Vietnam War, how much of it was about heroin. 3 days before 1968 presidential election, President Johnson contacted Senate Majority Leader Everett M. Dirksen to inform him the White House had received hard evidence from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The campaign of Republican presidential candidate Richard M. Dick Nixon was interfering with Johnson's effort to start peace talks to end the Vietnam War. In this call, Johnson referred to contacts between Nixon's campaign and South Vietnamese President Nguyen Van Thuy, I don't know how to say his name, urged that they thwart any such negotiations. Yeah.
Yeah, and that did happen. And also, they definitely, Bush, the senior Bush, George Bush Sr., he met with the leaders of the Iranian, I don't know, what do you call it, party, whatever, before the election, but the fight between Carter and Reagan. and insisted they needed to not be letting those hostages go.
Right.
And so I met Carter in Austin, or rather in Atlanta, I don't know, 3 years ago, right? It's very exciting for me because I've always been a big fan of Carter. I think he's the best president in my lifetime. And I talked to Carter, and he was like, and I said, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, is there a better time to ask? When am I ever going to have another time?
Right.
And so that was known as the October surprise, right?
Right.
That Bush met with those guys. Anyway, I just said, I'm going to ask him. I said, well, I just wonder, is there any truth to the October surprise? And he looks at me like he hadn't heard this question lately, right? And he looks at me and he goes, well, I never talked about this publicly, but we did still have people in the White House after we left who were there during the Reagan administration. And they confirmed it was true.
Yeah, of course it was true. It was too obvious. The hostages get released right after Reagan gets elected?
They released him on the day he took office.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Yeah. It's kind of disgusting.
Very disgusting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't want to be one to talk ill of American government. Far be it for me.
Yeah, we don't need to. Hey, man, your movie's fucking great. I loved it.
Oh, you saw it?
I saw it Wednesday night. Yeah, it was great.
Oh,
really,
thank you.
Really great. Nail biter. Like,
yeah, and the edge of your seat movie.
There's not a single cut the shit moment in that movie. You know, there's movies that there's where you have to suspend disbelief and it takes you out of it. There's none of that in that movie. It's really good. It's really good. Very suspenseful. Very fulfilling. The end of it, you feel super entertained.
Yeah. Oh,
great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's I love it. It's so exciting, that film. It's like an action movie. I mean, It really is like as nail biter as any action movie I've seen. I love it. And Alex Parkinson, he was the director. He also directed because it was a documentary, Last Breath.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Because people may not know. This was a real incident that happened in the North Sea. Anyway, Simu Liu and Finn Cole, loved those guys, loved working with them. That was a great experience.
It's a great movie. It's very good. It's very fun. Like, it's exciting. And I hardly ever go to the movies anymore. But your people made me go see it in the movie theater.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so I had to actually go to a theater and see it. It was great, though.
Well,
really
thanks
enjoyed
for
it.
doing that,
Oh,
man.
my pleasure.
That's,
my pleasure.
I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on.
Yeah, but I was excited to
Appreciate
talk
that.
to you, man. I'm a big fan. I've been watching you since Cheers.
Oh, thanks, dude.
It's a
Thank
long
you.
time.
Well, I'm a fan of yours, too.
Thank you.
I really am. I love the things you've done that just flipped everything on its head. The people you've interviewed, that you got, people genuinely up in arms, like you're not afraid. You're a fearless warrior, and I appreciate what you do. Like allowing voice to people. Other people will be like, you're wrong just to interview that person.
Yeah, you get a lot of that for sure, but that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous thinking. I don't even understand that. I really don't. I don't understand how we got to a place where you're wrong to have a conversation with someone, even if you disagree with them. This idea of platforming people. Well, how the fuck do you know what they really think? Based on what? The mainstream media that lies to you constantly? That's supported by all sorts of special interest groups that have no need to tell the American public the truth. They have a very specific narrative that they want pushed, and they want no deviation from that at all. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. It's crazy. I mean, if you have a large audience, I think you have at least a certain amount of responsibility to talk to some people that you think might be telling the truth.
Yeah, I liked your interview with Robert Malone.
Yes.
That was a crucial interview at a crucial time.
Well, it was the most pushback I'd ever experienced ever in my life. And I was like, this is crazy. It was really sad to see people like Joni Mitchell and Neil
Neil
Young and like I wanted to sit down and talk to them and like show them some studies and give them Robert Kennedy's book and say like, you don't really know what you're talking about.
Well, that's the thing that makes me sad is a lot of this information they're receiving is like from mainstream media,
Yeah.
which certainly has its own objectives and its own, things that it won't discuss.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, at all.
And I just felt like after that happened, you know, I was going to try to get in touch with you just to tip my hat to you, but it just felt like, why don't people just listen to the interview? Because I feel like everyone who was giving it a hard time hadn't even heard the interview.
Of course. Yeah, they had heard the mainstream media saying that it was dangerous misinformation. By the way, everything he said has turned out to be true. Every single thing he said had turned out to be true.
Sure.
Everything that everybody said about whether it was a lab leak, whether the vaccine had side effects, whether it was pushed, whether they lied about the studies and distorted the information, everything was true. All of it. Including Yale just released some study about people producing spike protein 700 plus days after the injections, which was never thought to be the case when they gave them to these people in the first place. And a host of different serious problems that people are having because of these, that everyone's covering up and people are lying about and everyone's trying to obfuscate and doctors are trying to sweep things under the rug because they don't want to be in trouble for mandating these things and telling people to get these things. It's horrible.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. And, if we go back to the allowing, you know, I just feel like to mandate was
Crazy.
wrong. They're just that to me is fascistic behavior.
Yes.
If you mandate that I have to take this thing, that if you take it, you're protected. Well, if I take it, wasn't that my, you
Right.
know? That
Doesn't
should
even
be
make
my
sense.
prerogative. I either want to be protected or don't want to be protected. Or maybe I am like I am, which is the last two entities on earth I would trust with my health would be big pharma and big government. Like those would be the last two I would look to. You know, how much big pharma's done to just push shit through that they know is bad for you,
Yes.
that they know harms you. And in this case, they know what's happened.
Yeah.
They know. And all we're left with after the, 86 that they mandated that you couldn't sue the vaccine companies?
Mm-hmm.
And so since then, we've only been left with VAERS, right?
VAERS,
The government, VAERS,
Yeah.
the government website. And there we have millions of people who fought through the red tape and then the bureaucratic whatever just to anonymously be known that they were injured.
Yeah.
So-
It was weird watching so many people that I thought were intelligent stand up for the government and for the pharmaceutical industry.
But it's
take
not
their
weird if you think of how, I mean, it was ubiquitous. It never stopped. The mainstream press was just harping on it constantly.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah. But it's just weird that so many people went along with it without question. I mean, and especially the weirdest part was it was the people on the left. That was so confusing to me because all my life, people on the left were very, very hesitant to believe anything that Big Pharma said and always distrusting in any major institution that was profiting off of something. And it was all very clear. You could see where the motivation was with everything. You could see the amount of profit that was going to be generated, and still everybody was just so scared. It just exposed a lot of cowards, a lot of fools, a lot of cowards, and a lot of people that are just at the moment of any form of adversity are willing to just bow down and do what the system tells them to. It's very strange.
Well, yes. I mean, to say cowards, it's interesting because of the nature of it being so mandated. You know, I had many people I know got vaccinated because they wanted to be able to fly, they wanted to be able to work.
Yeah.
So when it's mandated that you can't work, You know, I mean, how many drivers?
Yeah.
Every single driver had to be vaccinated. In Atlanta, every person on the crew had to be vaccinated, and if it was you had the first vaccination, but when you got the
The boosters.
the booster, it had to be within 6 months. If it's 6 months and a day, you won't work that day.
Yeah.
You know, it was very regimented. Everybody in every crew.
And including people that had already been sick. It didn't even make sense. Not only that, if you talk to virologists, they say you never vaccinate during a pandemic because that encourages variants. You know, I posted that on Twitter, the study on Twitter, and so many people were attacking me. I'm like, hey, I didn't write the study. This is a study that shows that when you vaccinate with a non-sterilizing vaccine during a pandemic, it encourages variants. And that's what happened. And they were blaming
What do you mean non-sterilizing vaccine?
So a vaccine that doesn't actually prevent you from catching the disease or spreading the disease.
Oh, right.
And that's
right,
what
right.
COVID is. Or that's what the
Well,
COVID vaccine
initially
is.
it was supposed to stop you. It was 100% going to stop and then of course, that guy had to be modified. It came to now, it will lessen your symptoms. A completely unprovable.
Yeah,
claim.
well, there was never any
Anyway,
studies
yeah.
ever in the beginning that ever showed that it stopped transmission. None.
Right.
Zero. All it did is it showed that it had an immune response.
So
That's it.
you read Bobby's book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And even the guy, interestingly, Kerry Mullis, I believe his name, the guy who created the PCR tests, there was some discrepancy with other people. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But the guy credited, he said, this vaccine, this test cannot prove
Infection.
it doesn't prove causation. So in other words, you're having a response that says that you have a viral load, but you don't know what the cause of that is. You don't know what generated that. And it can't prove what the illness is or what the problem is that causes that.
Depending upon the amount of cycles that you run the PCR, I mean, you could detect like the most minute amount that is not indicative of the person being infected.
Right.
And that person will have a false positive. And there's false positives were all through the fucking roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing made no sense, and it was just designed to push a vaccine that they profited off of massively, and I hope we learn. I hope next time things roll around, people are a lot more hesitant to just jump in and believe this shit.
Well, already they were coming up with additional vaccines for this or that or another booster, and people were like, no. So I think people have already started to question the validity of things.
Well, I think this pandemic and the response and the mandates and all that shit, it ruined people's faith in, first of all, the mainstream media. I think the mainstream media took the biggest hit out of anybody. Like the trust in the television shows and the newspapers that are supposed to be delivering the truth is at an all-time low.
Well, I hope you're right.
Oh, I think I'm right. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, the ratings are down on every fucking show there is. Newspapers, no one wants to buy them.
Since the pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. CNN is fucking no one's watching it anymore. MSNBC is a ghost town. No one's watching these shows because they're all just lying. They're lying. They're still lying. They're lying constantly. And now, now they're lying about the Department of Government Efficiency when before they were lying about pandemics and vaccines. It's not really the news. If it was the news, they wouldn't be paid for by the pharmaceutical drug companies. You can't have the fucking news sponsored by the people that you're supposed to be reporting on, and then you never report on them. That's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, also that whole trusted news initiative.
Yeah.
You familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you would be.
Yeah.
You talk to Bobby and everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Trusted News Initiative is just like, okay, we won't. Like I'd send a YouTube video that I just got to someone else, and by the time it gets to them, they're like, it won't let me watch it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? misinformation. But isn't misinformation also information?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how can you term it misinformation, and what you know, what are your you know, criteria that allow you to call that misinformation?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping people have learned, but it was a weird time, an educational time though. It was a good experience for some people to learn that, like, hey, like, there's sources that you cannot trust. And I think now the beautiful thing about someone like Elon buying Twitter and turning it into X and having community notes is now you have a way of fact-checking things where people use the community notes and they start posting studies in the community notes and saying, no, this story is not true. Here's why it's not true. Here's why it's provably not true. You know? So this is the best way to handle misinformation. It's not leave it up to government censors.
Yeah.
You know, and that was where everybody was going in 2020. It was just fucking crazy
but those
to watch.
weren't government censors. Those were the were the mainstream media censoring themselves.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
At the behest of government,
Yeah.
but also at the behest of big pharma. You know?
Yeah. When we found out that the government was actively contacting social media companies and having them remove things that were true. Because there was malinformation. Did you know that term?
I haven't heard that before.
There's misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Malinformation is true, but could have a detrimental effect on society. True information that can have a detrimental effect on society is malinformation. That also should be censored.
God.
It's Orwell.
Wow.
It's right out of 1984. It's crazy.
I feel so Orwellian, just the time we've gone through and the time we're in. It feels extremely Orwellian.
It's very weird. It's a weird time, but I'm optimistic.
I want to be optimistic, 'cause I think cynicism is the worst disease of old age. You know, once you're cynical, you are fucked, man.
Yeah.
Like it
hard to get out of it.
infects every part of your being, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you stay very positive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you seem like, man, nothing can stop you.
I try to stay positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm affected like everybody else is. You know, I was down during the pandemic. It bothered the shit out of me. But we came through it on the other end, and I think people have more resolve now. I think generally the general public has, at least a good percentage of the general public has a healthy distrust now for bullshit.
Certainly your listeners.
Yeah.
Now, but after that Robert Malone thing happened, I was really curious. I was wanting to contact you, and I didn't. But I was just curious how, because, man, I never seen anyone take more body blows. But I got to say, it was cool. They were like stood behind you. Is it Spotify?
Yeah.
Spotify was
did.
like, oh.
Well, fortunately, they're not American. It's not an American company. You know.
Oh.
Yeah, they're in Sweden.
Where are they from?
Sweden.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah. So they're like, we're not buying it. Also, the show was big enough where they were like, why would we pull this thing off the air? Let's hang in there and see what happens. And it just kept getting bigger. And so they were realizing that the people were basically on the side of free distribution of information. And they didn't buy it. But there was two guys, Peter McCullough and Robert Malone. Those are the ones. And then there was like some fucking...
Oh, yeah, Peter McCullough. Boy, he took a lot of hits big time during...
Most published doctor in human history in his particular field of study. I mean, he's a well-respected, rock-solid, credentialed...
And it was one of his videos I tried to send right after I got it. I tried to send to people. No.
Yeah.
They were so quick. I've never seen such quick... censorship or editing, almost impressive,
It was creepy. What was it like in Hollywood having your perspective, your healthy distrust of what was going on, where sort of everybody was sort of in lockstep with whatever the government propaganda was?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I don't know how many sets you visited, but everybody was like, in mass.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'd be different zones.
Yeah.
And then, you get, the closer you get to the actual set where the shooting is, and then that red zone, people, put your mask on. And I was just like, I never bought it. And I never bought it from the beginning. I'm just like, this doesn't feel right. All right. I'm supposed to wear a mask, but I haven't been, now at this point, right now, I haven't been sick in 8 years. Right? Well, back then was 6 years. But it was just like I knew, well, no, I'm doing the math wrong. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it had been a long time since I'd been sick. And I'm like, I don't feel like I need to wear a mask. So I would just not wear a mask, But everybody else on the set's wearing a mask, which is very discomforting because, you can't even relate to people so well without seeing their face.
It's very weird. It was very weird.
Very strange time.
Yeah, the strangest. And it didn't make any sense. And there was also this narrative that if you weren't vaccinated, the virus was going to hunt you down. They keep saying that. The virus will find you. If you're not vaccinated, the virus will hunt you down. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's so funny. I did a video. Oh, I wish I had it with me. But, maybe Ilya's out there, my assistant. Maybe she could pull it up for you.
Is it online?
I did it's 11 seconds. Yeah, she's listening. Hopefully she'll look at it. But it's like I inhale and hit a pot, right? And then I put on my mask
and blow it right through the mask.
And I exhale, and it just comes out every right, and every exhale, and by the way, hundreds of times heavier than like a virus.
Right.
Right? So viruses don't just, what the concept, people saying, trust in science, very unscientific concepts.
Yeah.
And Fauci, anyway, in the beginning said, no, we don't need to wear masks. And then someone said, no, you do. We do. We should wear a mask. And yeah, so silly, that mask, man. Just something about it felt like, it was just like Big Brother won.
Yeah.
Big Brother won.
They won a battle. But I think ultimately that's what's gonna cost them the war. I think
what
lessons learned from
What do you
that.
think Bobby's going to be able to, think he'll be able to accomplish anything?
This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's talk about subscriptions. It seems like there's so much you can subscribe to these days. You got the obvious ones like streaming services and shopping, but you also got your coffee subscription, meal kit subscription, the beers from around the world subscription. If you can think of it, there's probably a subscription for it. But let's face it, you sign up for something, forget about it after the trial period ends, and then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. That's why you gotta love Rocket Money. It's a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. A great feature is Rocket Money's dashboard. It gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. You can easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track. See your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money is going. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/JRE today. That's rocketmoney.com/JRE. That's rocketmoney.com/JRE. rocketmoney.com/JRE. Well, one big one that he wants to accomplish is to remove this liability waiver for vaccines.
Yeah.
And to make them go through real trials.
And how do you think that's going to get through Congress?
We're gonna find out. We're gonna
Come
find
on,
out.
dude.
We're gonna find out.
There's no way that gets through Congress.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what
But
the resistance is.
every one of those guys is getting money from
a lot
Big
of them
Pharma.
are. A lot of them are.
Well,
but also
certainly all the Democrats.
people are paying attention now, and they will get primaried, and I think they're aware of that. So I think there's a vulnerability for their entire career. If the people find out that they weren't willing to do this in the face of overwhelming evidence, like Bobby was just talking about the hepatitis vaccine, that they were saying that the hepatitis B vaccine, they were having a hard time selling it. And so they all of a sudden start saying, don't worry about it. We're going to prescribe it for children. And they put it on the vaccine schedule for children. And they did that just because they were having a hard time. Because the only time you get hepatitis B is from dirty needles and risky sex. And people are like, I don't want that fucking thing. And so they're like, nobody was taking it.
You want to stand by that statement. Those are the only times you get hepatitis B.
I think that's it.
And there's just two possibilities: dirty sex
what are the
or
other
dirty
ones?
needles.
Do you know of any other ones?
Well, I mean, I think
it's a sexually transmitted disease. And
Oh,
it's
it
often
is?
transmitted.
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
It's transmitted through intravenous drug use.
Okay, then I didn't know. I mean,
Yeah, how do you think you got hepatitis
I mean,
B?
I just assumed you get run down, like most sicknesses.
No,
you get
I don't-
run down, you get sick.
Well, let's Google it. What is the cause of hepatitis B, Jamie?
Infected blood or body fluids.
Yeah, it's that's how you get it. You don't get it as a fucking baby. So injecting babies with it, the only reason why they did that is to sell more hepatitis B vaccines. Yeah, if the mother has it. Unprotected sex with an infected person, mother to child, during childbirth, breastfeeding if the mother's infected. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Tattooing. Dude, you got a lot of avenues you could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess dirty needles. Same. I guess that falls under dirty needles. Yeah.
But anyway, I just wonder that, again, the profiteering, like, why are
Exactly.
we not talking about profiteering? That should be on everyone's lips.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. That's all the woes and ills of our society. It's people emphasizing profit over humanity. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. It's this fucking disgustingly short-sighted approach because you don't live that long. To live your life just profiteering off of the expense of other people's suffering is so crazy. When you got 80 years if you're lucky. You got 80 summers, 80 spins around the sun, and you're gonna fucking sell people out for some money that you're never gonna have enough of anyway. All those cocksuckers, they all want more. It never ends. They all want a bigger yacht. They all wanted this. They all wanted that. There was always something. It never ends, and somehow or another we let them get away with it because we're profiting as well.
I was wondering about, like, billionaires. You got to figure there's a certain hierarchy of billionaires, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so even if you're a billionaire and you're thinking, well, that he's good. He's made it, right?
Nope.
Well, no, I want to be the richest guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it never does end in a way.
Well, if that's what your game is, right? So if your game is just numbers, you're never going to be satisfied. If your game is just numbers, you're always going to look at the other people. Like my friend Brian has a friend that has $3 billion, and he says he hangs out with his billionaire friends and he feels poor because they have $30 billion. Like,
Right.
crazy. Imagine having $3 billion and feeling poor. But I can kind of understand the thought. I mean, it's stupid.
The poor white trash part of the group. Only $3 bills.
Poor bastard. How's he even buy a country? How do you even affect elections with $3 billion? That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Local election.
Well, I mean, this is just a symptom of the moral decay of our society. That we don't have a moral and ethical framework. We don't have a moral and ethical structure that we operate under. And too many people are just motivated by my money instead of humanity, instead of looking at people as like a community. We're all a community of people, and you can still profit and you can still make money, but like making more money at the expense of people's lives and suffering, should be the most abhorrent thing that we could possibly imagine, especially if you're already wealthy. That should be absolutely disgusting to us. Instead, it's condoned and just like accepted, and you shrug your shoulders. That's what people do.
Well, I think the majority of people agree with you 100% on that, and the majority of people have a very humane and compassionate view of others,
Yeah.
But there are those people who are just, it's like you say, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, war makes people really rich.
Yeah.
Gets a lot. I guess, I don't know, big pharma would be the number one industry, but not far behind. It's got to be the weapons industry.
Complex. Yeah.
And it's just like, why are these, if you even get away from why are these wars happening or are they justified, why are they making that much profit off of these wars?
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
That bothers me. I get sleepless over that.
It should.
Especially because the United States has just done, one World War II, okay, I give you that one, but I certainly don't give you the Korean War over the potential domino theory, which was absurd. The same theory so 4 million people die in Korea, 3.5 million in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. They started carpet bombing in Laos, which is everything in a 2-mile radius presumed dead.
Yeah.
What we've done throughout Central, South America, all over the world, we've become masters of war, but toward what end? To help those rich people get richer.
Yeah.
It's like I would understand if it's a justifiable, you have to stop Hitler, Mussolini, I get it.
Yeah.
But, come on.
It's crazy that it all really boils down to that. It really boils down to a lot of his people profiting,
I always have said that if war weren't so lucrative, there'd be a lot less of it.
Yeah. No doubt.
Sometimes just the war itself that's a moneymaker.
Yeah, but it's like, how do you fucking do that? What do you got there, fella?
I brought this for you, man.
What is it?
It's a very nice Northern California.
Oh.
I have a dispensary in L.A. Yeah, called The Woods. It's phenomenal. It's the most beautiful dispensary in the world.
You can have I remember when it was completely, totally illegal, and then you had to have a medical card. And you just say you had a headache. That's all you have to say.
Yeah,
You got back pain, you got a headache, you can get a subscription, or prescription rather. And then it became legal. But just in 2016.
But not here.
No. It's
needs
decriminalized.
To be legal in Texas.
It should be. Well, it should be federally legal.
This could be this state's so great anyway. We could change everything if Texas was legal.
Well, the whole country should be legal.
Yeah.
The idea that America, the land of the free, criminalizes the use of a plant that's never killed anybody is fucking crazy.
It's legislating morality, and it's an odd morality anyway, because most people believe you should be able to smoke if you want.
Not only that, it's a morality that's based off bullshit about profiteering from the 1930s. So it's propaganda from the 1930s that's still working today, 90 years later, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part of it. And that the only reason why it picked up steam is because they needed to put people to work after they had stopped banning alcohol. So prohibition ended. And everybody's like, what do we do now? Well, let's fucking go after marijuana. And then you get Harry Anslinger, William Randolph Hearst. They're all profiting from it. And they all fucking make the marijuana movies like Reefer Madness. And everyone's going to go crazy. And to this day, there's a lot of people who believe that. They think it makes you lazy, it makes you stupid, and
it really is. Although I would say my stupid quotient, I've dipped down to a new low. No, but I agree with you. I think that like Anslinger, nobody knows about that. How this guy went all over the place and got governments all over the world to declare this the enemy drug, But you know, like I really just believe, you know, there's such a thing as a consensual crime, which is victimless crimes. So
Yeah.
if I'm smoking a joint, well, a lot of it's like the vaccine. If I'm smoking a joint, how does that hurt you?
Right. Well, it hurts
What am I doing to hurt you?
if you drive and fall asleep at the wheel and
Well,
slam
that's
into a
one
school
thing,
bus.
of course.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
there's
that
already
makes sense.
laws for that.
Okay, yeah,
There's
well,
already
but
laws
that's
against
another.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
outside of the driving world, I don't see how I'm
Right.
hurting you. You know,
Right, outside
like,
the driving world, that's really the end of it.
and
Right.
and if I'm not getting my job done, then fire me.
Right.
Okay, so there's
Right.
it just there's no. And by the way, most people do agree with this, but when you have like over 70% of the people in jail are there for victimless crimes.
Yes.
Mostly drug-related crimes.
Well, then we go back to another thing, profiteering. Because
Profiteering,
we
once
have
again.
private prisons, which is crazy, where you're essentially taking human beings and you're using them as batteries to generate money. That's really
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, the more people you get in there, the more profit you're pulling out of it, which is just crazy. So then you have prison guard unions that are lobbying to keep laws on the books, victimless crimes on the books,
Right.
like marijuana.
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I imagine there's a lot of unions pushing it, but, you know, I didn't know till I saw the 13th. Is that what it was called, that movie? 13th Amendment? It was about the 13th Amendment? I didn't know about the... what's it called? There's a movie, I think it's called The 13th, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, he's... Anyway, there it is. Yeah, that's the first time I really thought about, in spite of being around prisons, you know, much of my life, I'd never thought about the fact that that's just they're making them work. It's just
Yeah.
slave labor.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah. Making them work.
I'd never thought about it until
slave
then.
labor for insanely small amount of money, and they keep them locked up and they produce things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you watch that, you believe it for sure.
Yeah.
Did you
I mean-
see that?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh,
I'm aware of the
you'd
laws,
like
though.
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm aware of that's a lot of where the Jim Crow laws came from. When they abolished slavery, what they did was just arrest people for basically anything and put them to work. I mean, that was
Right.
that was the modus operandi.
Yeah, which is, I guess that's when all that the 13th started, was back then.
Yeah.
As a part of the Jim
and again,
Crow
it all
laws.
goes to the same thing, profit. And ironically, a lot of this lack of compassion could be solved with psychedelics. A lot of it, where people expand their consciousness, understand that what they're doing is morally reprehensible, and even though you can sort of justify it because it's legal, it's disgusting, and we should change those laws. Those laws don't make any sense. Just because it's written on paper doesn't mean it's just. Doesn't mean it makes sense for
Be nice
logical,
to-
rational people.
I agree. It'd be nice to get some acid in the punch bowl at some kind of congressional, you know.
Well, consensually.
just-
I think,
Consensual. I mean, you're not going to get all those guys who needed to agree to it. So I'm just saying, throw a little in the punch bowl. They're all going by the punch bowl.
do you know who Graham Hancock is? He's an expert on ancient history, like a kind of a renegade historian. He's got a sort of alternative version of ancient society, ancient civilizations. But the point is, like,
he has a podcast?
he's got a two seasons of a series called Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. It's really amazing. It's all his field of study is the evidence that human beings and human civilization has gone through a reset, and that somewhere around 12,000 years ago, and this is all supported by this theory called the Younger Dryas Impact Theory, where they found evidence that the Earth was bombarded by comets at more than 2 different times in history that probably reset civilization, and that this is probably why you see like ancient structures that people can't explain, and that these stone buildings that have incredibly complex geometry and precision building
Oh yeah,
from thousands
like
and
at the
thousands
World
and thousands
Fair
of years
in
ago.
Chicago, like they had all those buildings.
That's a little different.
You talking about that?
Yeah, no, that's a little different. I'm talking about like ancient Egypt.
You're talking.
I'm
about
talking about
super
like
ancient.
Turkey.
Yeah,
you know, I'm talking about like Göbekli Tepe and these ancient structures that they found that are absolutely 11,000 plus years old, where people are supposed to be just hunter and gatherers, and that we had thought up until last 40 or 50 years that society emerged around 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. What he believes is that that is a reemergence of society, and that society had already reached a very high level of sophistication around 12,000 years ago, and that something happened, some sort of gigantic cataclysm, and reset things. But Graham is also an enthusiast of ayahuasca and the power of psychedelic medicine, and he has often said that to run governments, it should be mandatory that you have psychedelic sessions. And
Right.
you should probably do it publicly.
Publicly.
So you really find out. I mean, imagine getting Lindsey Graham fucked up on mushrooms and then filming him.
I would love to see that.
It would be amazing. It would be
What
amazing.
I would give to see that.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
But it would be nice if they had a little more, because it's almost, those drugs that you're talking about are just like, it's like the universal, God's little helper.
Yeah.
It'll help you see how the world really works.
Yeah,
how
God's little helper.
The illusory nature of what it is we're experiencing.
Yeah.
And to come from the heart.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they encourage compassion. They encourage kindness and love. And that's we need a lot more of that in this world. And that's the problem with being so politically and ideologically divided. It's like it's so easy because people are so tribal. It's so easy to hate the other tribe. The other people are the enemy. And so we've got this bizarre thing where we're supposed to be a community, but we're a two-sided community, and one side hates the other side, and whoever's in power, those people are the problem. It's like,
yeah, that is such a weird part of the human, I don't know, nature
Psyche,
or whatever you want to call it, psychology. It's like, and I noticed just the other day, there was some dude like. I can't remember what the context was, but I remember he kind of came into my zone, and I thought, oh, look at this fucking guy, man. He's such an asshole, I could just tell. You could just feel it,
Right.
And then I thought, Woody, why are you? What? You've got nothing that tells you that that's true,
Right.
Other than maybe you're jealous because he's more handsome than you are or something. No, but anyway, and so I go. How you doing? And he smiles, and I'm like, this guy's incredible.
Yeah.
Like all you need to do sometimes is just generate a smile on that other
Sure.
person who you think's an asshole's face, and suddenly they're a kid. It's suddenly you're in a different. You're using your kid juice to interact.
That's like the
point.
importance of charisma. Right, because a person isn't exactly who they are. They're who they are when they interact with you. And however you interact with them will affect the way they interact with you. It's
Right.
it's a two-way street, most sort of interactions.
If they see a frown on your face, then
Right.
inevitably there's a frown on their face.
Inevitably. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But smiles generate smiles, and if you think
Yeah.
about it, that is the easiest energy generating thing is another person's smile.
Sure.
And getting you to smile.
And common ground, And I think that's the problem with the media and with political ideologies, is that there's no currency in common ground. The currency is all in division. That's where you can gain the most momentum, get the most people on your side. You have to say the other people are the enemy. Common ground is much more common. Most people agree. Most people want to be safe. They want to be healthy. They want to be happy. They want to have friends. They want to have a good time. They want to have a nice family. They want to be loved. They want to have love. That's most people. And they think that the other people are trying to prevent that. Instead of just accentuating those important factors and saying we should all concentrate on that, and then we should all look at things that prevent that. What are the things that prevent happiness and love and health? And let's all work collectively together to eliminate those aspects of our society. Yeah. The problem is you don't make a lot of profit doing that. You know,
Yeah.
the profit is in the division.
The media does push the divide for sure.
The media is bullshit. First of all, they're dying. They're dying like AM radio. They're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. The internet is more compelling, and independent journalism is more accurate. And it's going to be more.
Are you
and
sure
more.
that's not a subjective vantage point, Joe?
It's certainly subjective. Yeah, it's certainly subjective.
All your vantage points are subjective.
Yes, everything's
Right.
subjective. It's definitely subjective. But listen, I think there are very good people that work in journalism. I think there are very good people that work at the New York Times and the Washington Post and even in CNN. I know them. I know people that work at CNN and I like them. I know people that work at the New York Times and I like them very much. The problem is the institution. And the institution is based on profit. And where do you get your money? Well, you get a lot of your money from pharmaceutical drug companies, from NGOs. There's funding from all these different political groups. And that's the problem. The problem is enormous entities that need incredible amounts of capital in order to stay relevant. And in doing so, what's crazy is if you're in the information business, well, you can't be accurate. You cannot be accurate about the distribution of information if your profits are based on you pushing a bullshit narrative, because those are the people that are supporting you. So therefore, they're not going to make it. Like, it's like you see the writing on the wall. It's like, this is not tenable. You're not going to be able to continue this. You're going to either have to adjust course or you're going to be swallowed. And that's what people realize that now with the internet. When you got people like Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger and Glenn Greenwald, respected journalists who are now on the outside. And so now they've amassed this huge following on the outside because, you know, if you go to Glenn Greenwald, he's going to tell you what's actually going on. Why are we invading this? Why are we bombing this country? What is going on? And he'll tell you it all goes back to 2013 when this was passed and this is what happened and they tried to do this and this is what we're trying to do because there's oil here or there's minerals there. And you're like, oh, fuck. And so, but most people don't have the time to do that kind of a deep dive. So you turn on CNN, and CNN says, safe and effective. Have you gotten your knife booster? Get your knife booster. You know, like, and then the fucking anchors are blacking out on TV, and it's like, wow. Like, they're in a trap. They're in a trap. First of all, they're in a trap because of the actual format of the show sucks, right? Format of television shows suck. You have 3 talking heads yelling at each other 5 minutes before commercial. Everyone's trying to get a sound bite that goes viral, and then you cut to a commercial about antidepressants, and then you come and you come back. You come back, and there's a flood, and there's fucking Detroit's frozen. Do you see that shit in Detroit? Well, they had a flood and then it froze, and so you got cars like up to the fucking windshield, frozen solid in the streets, and car alarms going off.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it happened yesterday. There was some sort of a water main line broke, probably because of the cold, and then the streets flooded, and then the streets, when they flooded, then they froze, and so all these cars, like literally up to the windshield, stuck. See if you can find it. It's crazy to look at. Like, look at this. Entire streets filled.
Oh my God.
And if you watch a video of it, all the car alarms are going off. So the car alarms are going off and all the cars are frozen. Give me some. Well, you can hear it if you put your microphone. Yeah, put your headphones up. Listen to this.
Wild, man.
So everybody's fucking car alarms going off because the car's getting crunched. So the cars are getting disturbed, so they're getting crunched. So the cars think that people are breaking into them. Minus 70 degrees. As if Detroit doesn't have enough fucking problems.
Oh my God.
Poor Detroit.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, but Detroit's been doing so well lately.
Yeah.
It's really. I went there not long ago.
They're making a comeback.
And it was phenomenal.
They're making a comeback.
Wow, what a fun place! Like,
well, you know
the
what?
Artists kind of took it over, and it just became. It's pretty groovy.
Artists and artisans and companies that are like proud, like Shinola. That company.
Yeah, that's my buddy Tom Kartsotis.
Oh, they're great.
Do you know him?
No, I don't. But I
he's
I
one
bought
of the
their
great
stuff.
humans on this planet. Yeah, he started Shinola. Shinola is a great company.
It's a great company. I have one of their laptop
He's an incredible
bags.
guy.
They make awesome stuff. They make great watches, great stuff, but made in Detroit, like proudly.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And they got
everything.
the record player that he did with Mike White, Mike the Mike White. No.
Jack White?
Jack White.
Oh.
I knew that wasn't right. I
Yeah.
couldn't. Mike White makes
From the White
White
Stripes.
Lotus. Yeah, no, Jack
Yeah.
White. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also do vinyl. They make all these vinyl.
Oh, that's cool.
Those guys do cool stuff, man.
Yeah. Well,
Shinola, I
last
love
time
it.
I was in Detroit, I did the Fox Theater, and I saw a lot of that too. A lot of like small shops and cool places, and because real
Yeah.
estate's cheap, so people are like moving in, and artists are doing things, and it's fun. It's like a little bit of a revival after they
Yeah.
got fucked by the auto industry.
Well, yeah, for sure.
More profiteering,
For
right?
sure.
Sent
Once
all the fucking
again,
jobs to other
yeah.
countries because you can get people to work for slave labor.
Yeah, and now they're dealing with this incredible ice flood.
Yeah, I think that's a
Wow, man.
small isolated area, but still pretty fucked.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, go fig.
Are you still in L.A.? Where do you
Dude,
live?
I'm in Austin, right here with you.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
are.
Come on.
Where do you live, though? Where do you spend most of your time?
No, I live in Austin.
Oh, do you?
I live in Austin.
I didn't know you lived here.
Yeah, I live in the Drip.
Oh, nice. Dripping Springs is great. I love it out
Yeah.
there. That's
Yeah.
a nice place. That's a nice area.
No, I'm determined you and I are going to have to hang out sometime
do it.
socially.
I would love to do that. Let's do it.
Yeah?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay, well,
Fuck
you
yeah.
don't feel just like you're back against the wall.
No,
because
I
we're
love
on
you,
a-
man. Come on. I'll hang out with you
bet.
anytime.
Great.
Call me
great.
at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'll go meet you somewhere. I don't give a
Okay,
fuck.
perfect.
I'll bring you down to my comedy club.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I bought a comedy club on
right.
6th Street.
What's
Yeah.
it called?
Comedy Mothership.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
It's fun. It's a great place. My buddy Jimmy Dore is there this weekend, who's also great, and he's filming his comedy special there this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jimmy Dore is amazing. He is another guy that's risen as an independent journalist. He's a comedian, and he started his show basically just making fun of political things, and then during the pandemic got vaccine injured and really got kind of red-pilled and kind of became like the voice of truth and reason. And, another guy who's been completely outcast by supposedly progressive people for just telling the truth, the inconvenient truth.
Inconvenient. But I guess the progressives, are they now the conservatives? We got to change the term because progressives seem a lot less progressive.
Yeah.
I really felt quite,
I think
during
they got
this whole
co-opted.
thing, I felt quite, co-opted.
I think they got co-opted, and I think it was on purpose. I think there was some very sophisticated psychological manipulation that was involved, and a lot of money was being spent in order to push some very specific narratives. And they did a great job of it. They did a great job of it, but we're finding out because of the Department of Government Efficiency that most of this was funded by our own tax dollars, which is really fucking crazy. A lot of these NGOs that supported a lot of these crazy riots and all these different things that were happening in our cities was really supported by our own tax dollars. And it was just a subversion of public discourse. Instead of allowing people to figure out what's right and what's wrong, they pushed what they wanted you to say, and anybody who deviated from that was canceled. And because of the fact that before Elon bought Twitter, the left had complete, total control over the narrative because they owned all the social media sites and they were in lockstep with the government. So it was just a dark time for information, but a few brave people, braved the storm, and one of them was Jimmy.
Oh. That's good. That's a good.
He's great. You would love him.
Shout out to him.
He's great.
Well, I remember when the guy was. Remember that guy? I think they were in London, maybe, but it was the guy who was. I think directed one portion of Pfizer, and he met with some guy, and he had a body cam. The other guy had a body cam. It was like a date on Tinder or something.
Oh,
but
it was like one of those
but it had
Project
been kind of
Veritas,
worked
James
out.
O'Keefe things.
Did you not see it?
I'm sure I did.
But this is the perfect example of
Yeah.
how the Trusted News Initiative managed to, a lot of news just never got to people because the guy had a body cam and it's talking to him, and the guy who works for Pfizer is saying they just had a meeting talking about how they could weaponize these other viruses in
Yes.
order to basically create another pandemic to create so that they would have the vaccine to address it and make more money, which is not a surprising thing that they would be discussing. But what was great was he admitted it to the guy while they're sitting there at a little diner.
It's always chatty gay guys.
But the main thing, huh?
It's always chatty gay guys. It's always a guy on a date with another guy, and he's like, "I'll tell you what we're doing." It's like they just chat it up.
But the incredible thing, like he got the stuff that he said was incredible.
Yeah.
What was more incredible? Oh, he told the guy basically that he'd been filming him. The guy freaks out. Anyway, this should have been across every possible platform of media.
Of course.
And yet you did not see it, zero in
Right.
mainstream media. But because Musk had bought Twitter, Musk put it on, and it immediately got 40 million views. And also, what's his name? Tucker Carlson put it on, and then there was a lot of views that way. But other than that, if you ask your average person, they never heard of this incident.
Yeah.
It's like an amazing thing, talking about, what's the term for that? The weaponization of a virus. Do you know? He's looking it up.
Term for the weaponization of a virus.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, they do it, but that's what they think that they were doing in
Wuhan.
China.
Well, 100%.
They were weaponizing.
Well, that
the
was
virus.
why you would get banned off of all these social media platforms if you even brought that up. I mean,
Right.
it used to be if you brought that up on YouTube, you get pulled from YouTube. Now it's a fact.
Right.
Now it's a fact. Now it's
No.
undeniable fact. All the things, like you said about Robert Malone, all the things that he said are now fact. Everything, every single one of them. The fact that it doesn't stay, the injection doesn't stay locally, that it infects various parts of your body in different ways. If it gets to your heart, it's very dangerous because your heart doesn't have the ability to heal, which is why you don't get heart cancer. So your heart just scars over and you get myocarditis. He started talking about all these different effects, and he personally was vaccine injured. So he's a guy who took it, almost had a fucking heart attack, was like, what is going on? His whole body freaked out. It was deadly sick. Managed to get through it, then started speaking out against it, then started doing more research and finding out what was going on, and then that was the collective freak out.
Well, it's incredible that so many people were injured, and yet it's still kind of not a widely discussed thing. I think people are discussing it.
More
course.
people are discussing it now, but it's still there's a lot of people that don't want to bring it up because they don't want the heat. They saw what happened to people that did bring it up, and they don't want that coming their way. It's still fresh in their memory, and they keep their mouth shut. Yeah. But over time...
Did you find out what it was called? Weapon?
Biological warfare? I don't know.
No, it's...
There's a term?
There's a term for it, huh?
A term? I don't know what the term is.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just... I don't know. It's a crazy time in this world.
Yeah. But crazy times are fun, too, because people snap out of it. They pop through it. They come out on the other side, and they go, what the fuck was going on? And then you have a re-examining of society, and I think that's happening right now, and I think that's a good thing. As long as people keep their cool and they don't go tribal. You can't go tribal. You can't go us versus them. They're the bad guys.
Right.
The fucking all those people with blue hair, those fucking pieces of shit. No, they're sad, lost people. That's what it is. Sad, lost, angry people that think they have to lash out at the other for the problems that is really caused by gigantic corporations and the exchange of money. And, yeah.
It always comes down. Hey, follow the money. Yeah,
Follow
it's just
that fucking
always,
cheese.
every time.
It's always the money.
The cheese.
And it's never enough. It's a weird thing about us. And again, I think part of the problem is this lack of methods to escape. And I don't mean escape reality. I mean to escape the fog of propaganda. And that's literally why all that stuff was made illegal in 1970. Richard Nixon was trying to stop the anti-war effort in the civil rights movement. That's why they turned the sweeping Schedule I Prohibition Act of all psychedelic drugs. That's what that was about. It wasn't about protecting society. If it was, they would have got rid of OxyContin. They would have got rid of. They got rid of addictive painkillers and Vicodin, Percocets. They never got rid of any of that stuff.
They got rid of Big Macs for that matter.
Yeah. See,
Oh, I know. Listen, I
here's the
know
thing
you're a
about Big
meat
Macs.
guy. You love meat. But can we say Big Macs are not the greatest thing for you?
no, they're not great. They're not great for you. But I feel like you should be able to eat a Big Mac if you want to. I feel
Hey,
like
you
you
should
should
be
have
able
some
to do
discipline.
anything if you want to. I wouldn't care if
Yeah.
you shot up right now.
But that's what I'm saying. Don't get rid of Big Macs, but don't eat them every day, you fucking idiot. It's like I say about Doritos. People are like, oh, we should get Doritos off. No, Doritos as they are a perfect snack. They're delicious, but they're fucking terrible for you. Just like cigarettes, just like whiskey. They're terrible for you.
Right.
But in the moment, they're great. The key is recover and then don't do it every day. That's the key. The key to all things is moderation. All things.
Dude, I wish you'd have given me this speech like I was 20. You know what I mean? Like, it's some precipice after 21. I
Yeah.
just started. Became immoderate, you know? In fact, I didn't even smoke pot until I was 21.
I didn't smoke
and
pot
I
until I
didn't
was 30.
drink. Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Well, I thought it
great.
was going to turn you into a loser. I
Yeah.
mean, I bought into all of it. I grew up with a lot of people that had drug problems, and I wanted to succeed in life. And my biggest fear was being a loser, you know, just someone who just never got their shit together. And I was like, well, anything that gets in the way of being successful and being healthy and happy, avoid that.
And now, what at point did you say to yourself, I'm definitely not a loser? There's no chance of me being a loser.
Oh, I don't know if you ever think. I guess I think that now, but I think
Or do you sometimes doubt it and say I'm a loser?
Well, I definitely think I'm very hypercritical, self-critical. So I battle against that because I think that's something that anybody who strives to be successful battles against. You always feel like you could do more, you know. But there's a balance, like being doing more and being happy, enjoying yourself, but also accomplishing things you want to do, feeling fulfilled, you know, having worthwhile goals. Things that you think are valuable, not just to you, but valuable to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you feel like you must feel
I feel
pretty
like that
good
now.
about
Yeah, but I don't think about it, honestly, because I think if you think about it, then you get lost. Then you get like, look how good I am. You know, you can get really lost in success, where you get intoxicated by that too. So I think you just got to kind of exist. You got to kind of exist and not feed your insecurities, but also don't feed any delusions of grandeur either. You know, just be a person. Just learn how to be a human being.
But that's got to be hard for you, dude, because, I mean, you're at the tippy top of the tippy top. And everybody's got to be kissing your ass and telling you how great you are. It's got to be hard to not allow your ego to dictate things, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I stomp my ego pretty good. I do it with workouts. I do it with martial arts. I do it with cold plunging and saunas. I put myself through voluntary adversity. It's pretty fucking brutal. And that's my best way to achieve like homeostasis. That's my best way to achieve like a balance. Is that I put myself through way more than life ever gives me. So that I'm always, you know, I get it. You know, you're always vulnerable. You're always weak. You're always late. There's always something. So as long as you confront that all the time, and keep your mind healthy and balanced and have a healthy perspective. You know, there's a lot of like new agey sort of bullshit terms that unfortunately have been co-opted by silly people, you know, but a lot of those, like, they're very important, like gratitude. Gratitude is a really important quality that people should have. You know, mindfulness is a really important quality that people should have. But these things are co-opted by goofy people that wear wooden beads and want you to join their cult. You know, it's like they want you to think that they're special and they're particularly spiritual. You know, and so unfortunately, really good concepts are often tainted by silly people, you know, like love and God and a lot of the things that are really like beneficial to us as a society. They get co-opted by goofy people, Like, how many people have been turned off by religion by watching mega pastors in these huge churches flying around in private jets and driving in Rolls Royces? Like, oh, well, this is all bullshit. You know?
Yeah. Do you I had a couple of jokes. No.
Go ahead.
Do you think I mean, I'm curious. I must have heard you talk about this, but what is your concept of religious? I mean, do you have a specific religion that you adhere to?
Not necessarily. I'm not in favor of any restrictive religions. I'm not in favor of any religions that punish people that don't follow them, and I'm not in favor of any religions that force a very rigid structure on people that has to be adhered to, or you're a sinner or cast out. Or I think that most religious experience. I think most religion is based on human beings' very unique experiences that have provided enlightenment, and they're trying to express that enlightenment to other people. And I think the problem with religious stories are that people are full of shit, and a lot of those stories suck. You know, a lot of those stories are probably distorted by the hand of man. But I think, you know, I'm of the school of thought that a lot of the religious experiences that people talk about were probably inspired by psychedelic experiences. And, you know, there's a great book called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross by John Marco Allegro. Do you know about that book?
I've heard of it, but I never read it. Yeah,
it's a great book.
I heard
but it's very hard to follow because it's very unless you understand Aramaic, unless you understand the translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like, there's
I'm
people
fluent Aramaic.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah, I got Aramaic. I got obviously French. I had to learn Spanish when I was working construction in Houston, and then I got.
Can you hear him with that microphone? I should push that microphone up.
I got some of the click languages.
Oh, really?
No, I only speak only English. Come on, Jay.
Well, the John Marco Allegro book, he was an ordained minister, but he was one of the people that was assigned to translate the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he did it over the course of, I think it was about 14 years. And he wrote this book because it was his belief, and he was a very straight-laced scholar. He wasn't a psychedelic enthusiast, but he believed that the entire Christian religion was based on the consumption of psychedelic mushrooms and fertility rituals. And he thinks that a lot of these stories, that their origins come from that. And,
really?
Yeah, and he believed that a lot of it was the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is a very confusing mushroom because a lot of people have a hard time tripping on it. They don't know exactly. And Terence McKenna believed that the problem was that the psychedelic compounds in it varied regionally and genetically, and that they weren't all the same, and that a lot of these people that were having these experiences were not. It really depended upon where you get them from and how you got them and how you treated it, and a lot of that information was lost. And also, like, there's certain religious ceremonies that involved very mysterious things like soma. You know, soma from the ancient Hindu texts, they don't know what was in there. They don't know what it was, but it seems like it was some sort of a psychedelic compound, whether it was blue lotus and psilocybin or a combination of many things. You know, like the Eleusinian mysteries, where, you know, in ancient Greece, they believed that was ergot, that ergot was mixed in with the wine, ergot, which is a very similar experience to LSD.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a great book on that, too, if you've never read it. It's called The Immortality Key by a scholar named Brian Murarescu, who's a brilliant guy who's been on the podcast a couple times. But he's done a lot of, like, really legitimate work on proving that these vessels, these wine containers that they had from these ancient times, they found trace elements of ergot in these wine vessels. And they know that wine back then was not just fermented grapes. They would add a bunch of things to the wine. And so
party pleasers.
Yeah. So these experiences that people would have, they would go to the Ulysses. And I went there when I was in Greece a couple of years ago. And it's an amazing place, man. When you're there, like, it feels weird. When you go to the place where they have these psychedelic rituals, like, the place has a bizarre memory that you feel when you're there. You're like, because you can literally walk on the grounds where they had these rituals, and you're there, and you're like, whoa, like this place feels wild. It just like my kids rather were like, what's wrong? Like I'm fine. I'm just like I'm weirded out by this place. Like I feel it. I feel like a bizarre connection with this place. Like it feels alive. Like it's humming or something. It was very weird. Very weird. Like I was touching the rocks and just trying to like feel like what's going on here. It's like you got thousands of years ago, these people were just tripping balls and inventing democracy right here at this very spot. You know, it's literally the roots of democracy.
They had to be tripping to think of something so bold as democracy.
Yeah. I mean, it is literally what we were talking about. Like if you want something that accentuates compassion and this sense of family and brotherhood and sisterhood, that we're all together in this thing, what better than psychedelic drugs?
Yeah.
And that's why they're illegal.
Exactly.
It gets in the way. It gets in the way of this us versus them narrative that is so prevalent in our goofy society that's detached from these sacred compounds.
Yeah, the herb, you know, it really is a unifying thing. I've always, from the first time I tried it, you know, I just felt such bonhomie, you know,
Yeah.
like such compassion to everybody around me.
Yeah,
And
it makes you
also-
kinder.
Huh?
It makes you kinder.
Makes you kinder.
Yeah,
And,
man, that's why
you
they call
know,
it kind bud.
Kind bud.
That's probably why they call it that.
I have a little of the kind. But, yeah, no, I like the image of it as just a unifier, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what makes me wonder, why does Texas not just say, hey, let's open the doors to this? It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You could have the best cafes in Austin.
I know. Yeah. Well, it's weird because there's certain weed here that's legal. What is it, Delta 9? Is that the legal stuff or Delta 8?
I know
Which
what
one?
you're talking about.
It's weird. It's weird because
Yeah.
it's like pretty much just weed.
Yeah, I never got into that stuff, though.
It's just a
Yeah.
different version of the plant.
But it doesn't get you high.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Really?
Oh,
didn't-
yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'll get you some.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I like
don't know
how
what
many
they're doing.
syllables you got out of yeah. Is
I
oh,
don't
yeah.
know what they're doing. I don't know how they're doing it, but somehow or another they're skirting around the rules and developing
Okay.
something that is
I'll get
basically
over
the
to
same.
the Delta 9 Center.
Yeah, it's basically like weed's twin sister that has different genetics. I don't know. I don't understand it.
Now,
But-
I heard they're trying to work out a thing where there's no more of those exceptions here.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
that would suck.
The legislature.
That's goofy. I mean, there's plenty of things to concentrate on. Why concentrate on that? It's just it's a dumb rule. It's a dumb rule that's mostly enforced by people who don't know what the experience is. They have a distorted idea what the experience is, and they think it's just going to make people losers.
Well, also, it's being mandated from people with different kinds of, desires, and a lot of it financial. But, anything that does, I consider a crime anything I do that hurts you or your property.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no crime.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we got to get past that. I think there's just a lot of people that recognize that what they did in the 1970s was very effective. They threw water on the entire psychedelic movement and the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement, and they did it by banning a lot of these compounds that were changing the way people thought about life. And, like the whole peace, love, and hippie movement of the 1960s was all inspired by psychedelic drugs, all of it.
Right.
And it was a revolutionary, complete change of society from 1950 to 1960. I mean, 10 years, the music and culture became almost unrecognizable. It could change so radically. And I think it was terrifying to the powers that be. And unfortunately, the propaganda that they pushed, just like the propaganda that we saw during the COVID times and propaganda that you have whenever there's a war, that propaganda is sticky. That stuff sticks. It sticks around for a long time. And unless you have viable representations of opposing narratives that are really effective, it's very hard for people to change their perspective on things without a personal experience.
Right.
And most of these people that are like, straight-laced, no-nonsense type folks, they don't want to smoke weed. What, am I going to ruin my brain? I've heard like legitimate scientists say, I would never want to interfere with the way my brain works. Like, okay, do you drink coffee? Shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Do you exercise? What do you do? What do you do? Do you eat good food? There's a lot of things that change the way your brain works. This is a dumb way to look.
You really want your doctor looking healthy. You don't want to walk in and see some obese, having trouble breathing type of guy.
Yeah.
It's going to give you your advice.
Well, that was one of the most fascinating things about COVID. When I was talking to Dr. Peter Hotez, who's an overweight guy who eats junk food, and he's telling me everybody's got to get vaccinated. I'm like, are you healthy? Like, are you healthy? Because you don't see, do you work out? Like, do you eat well? Do you take vitamins? No. None of those things. But you think that, like, chemicals, that the only way that you're going to get healthy is from a laboratory and an injection. That doesn't seem real. That seems crazy.
Well, the whole notion is to bolster your immune system's response to this specific item, right? But so if your immune system's strong,
right,
you really have nothing to fear.
Well,
if
that's
your immune system's weak, you have also a lot to fear by taking a vaccine that can, with this recent one, it actually hurts the immune system. It harms the immune system.
Especially with repeated doses.
At least old people should get vaccinated. Should old people get vaccinated? I don't think so.
I mean, the problem was also any sort of, this is Dr. Birx is now admitting this when she's being questioned, is that they stopped any early treatments that weren't the vaccine, and that they probably shouldn't have done that, and that a lot of people could have been saved because of that. And that's true. And then that's something that people need to that's one of the best aspects of Bobby Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, is like understand like what pressures were put on these organizations to stifle and completely stop the prescription use of a bunch of different things, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. Also, like the studies that were done on vitamin D deficiencies and how that impacted immune systems, and just sunlight, exercise, diet. All those things play a critical factor in how well your immune system functions. And the idea that the only way your immune system functions at its peak is you got to stick a fucking metal pin filled with a solution that gets plunged into your tissue. That's the only way. It's the only way, Woody.
Yeah.
You got to shove a fucking needle in your arm. Like, what?
But you make a great point, because it's like, why didn't we hear from America's Dr. Fauci or the other representatives from the medical industry? Maybe eat less, sugar. Yeah. Maybe eat less fast food. Maybe exercise. There was no other directive.
No.
Take the vaccine.
No,
that's the only directive.
They didn't want to fat shame, so they never told anybody to lose weight, which is one of the major comorbidities that affected people negatively.
Yeah. Bill Maher was onto that really early. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's weird times. But again, I have hope.
Yeah, me too, man. In spite of everything, I have hope. Well, because I believe in people generally. There's people who in California and New York, they look at Texas as like, this lost state. You know what I mean? Greatest people in the world. Yeah. Greatest, kindest, nicest people. Yeah. But you may not want to talk about certain subjects. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So, just avoid those subjects. You get along.
And even the subjects that you're supposed to avoid, why? Why are we avoiding them?
Well, I agree. I'd like to talk about any subject.
Yeah.
I like a little healthy, debate.
Also, I want to know why you think the way you think. If you think totally different than me, I want to sit down with you. And I want to give you all the room in the world to say what you think. I want to know how you came to those conclusions. I want to know what your childhood was like. I want to know like what experiences have you had that led you to have these like concrete evaluations of the way society is that are so different than mine.
That's a great compassionate vantage point. That's what we really lacked.
Yeah, we
recently.
need that. You need to sit down with people that you don't agree with and find out. And oftentimes they fall apart. That's just the fascinating thing. You give them enough room, you just keep talking to them, they fall apart. You know, one of the weirdest conversations I had on this podcast was talking to Dr. Sanjay Gupta from CNN. They sent him over here to fucking straighten me out. And, you know, by the end of it, it was a very bizarre conversation. By the end of it, he was essentially agreeing with me.
I had heard that he didn't think you should necessarily vaccinate. I thought he was a little more progressive on that.
He's smart, but he's also working for CNN, and he's also a neurosurgeon. So he's he's a bright guy. He's just like captured by the system, and that's part of the problem. But there was a lot of things that didn't make any sense. Like one of the ones where he wanted me to get vaccinated after I'd recovered from COVID.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, I had COVID.
Shouldn't that be the reason I'm already vaccinated, basically?
Yeah. Well, I'd recovered from COVID in 3 days. It wasn't hard at all. And that's when I got hit. That's when everybody came after me. It was because I was a bad example, because I was healthy. And I was giving people bad information by telling them all the things that I took to get better, which is really weird. And then they focused on this one thing, which was Ivermectin. I read a laundry list of stuff that I took: IV vitamins, NAD, Ivermectin, monoclonal antibodies. I talked about all the different stuff that my doctor put me on, and I was better in 3 days. And then what did CNN do? They turned my face yellow. They put a filter on the video to make me look sick, and they started talking about me taking horse paste, which is crazy. They said I was taking a veterinary medicine.
Yeah, the Ivermectin?
Yeah.
They suddenly calling it that in spite of it treating, millions of humans effectively.
Billions of prescriptions have been filled. Billions. Yeah. Billions of times human beings have taken Ivermectin.
They have the guy who invented it in the statue at the WHO. I mean, that's why, because he invented Ivermectin.
Yeah.
And
he won the Nobel Prize.
That was an interesting thing, how they made these other drugs, negative. What was the
hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine and Ivermectin, which some legitimate doctors found to be effective. Suddenly you can't even bring it up, and then you couldn't even get it.
Yeah.
Like suddenly they made it ungettable.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't get it from Walgreens. They wouldn't prescribe it for you. Unless you had like some sort of
malaria or something.
Yeah, you'd have to have, or some sort of a parasite. I mean, that's why they said it was a dewormer, because it was anti-parasitic. But when I said it to Sanjay Gupta, I go, but it's also been shown to stop viral replication in vitro. And I said, you know that, right? And you can see this look on his face like, oh shit. Because that's a fact. Like, they've studied viral replication. You use ivermectin in Petri dishes, it stops viral replication. It's a fact. Like that, there's studies on this. Like, it's also, it's like one of the most safe drugs known to man. It's like the safety profile is incredible. And this idea that like Rolling Stones printing articles that people are having overdoses from ivermectin and people can't get into the emergency room because of gunshot wounds. They even showed a photograph of a bunch of people outside of an emergency room wearing winter coats in August, because it was a photograph of people waiting in line to get a flu shot. It was a bullshit photograph that fucking Rolling Stone published. Like, this is so wild to watch, because it's not just propaganda. It's really shitty propaganda. Right. Because there's not much truthful they can say that would go against this stuff. So they have to just say it's horse dewormer. You're a fool. You're taking horse dewormer. But what they didn't understand is, at the time, they didn't understand the media landscape. They thought that they were still huge. But they didn't understand, like, an average video on my show was like 10 times bigger than their show. It's just, we weren't talking about it. We weren't saying it. So they still thought they were CNN. They were going to crush this rebellion against this one specific thing that you had to do, which was get vaccinated.
Right.
Just fucking, remember when Biden was on television, he was talking about the hurricane was coming? Most important thing when the hurricane is coming is get vaccinated. Everything's harder if you're not vaccinated.
Yeah, well, All that money they gave those guys.
They gave them a lot of money.
They had to do something. Little payback.
It's wild, though. It's going to affect their ability to make money in the future, that's for sure. Especially CNN.
Yeah.
They all take a hit.
Honestly, I won't miss these other organizations anymore.
I watch them every now and then.
They lost my my confidence.
Yeah. Yours and most people's.
Yeah.
I think that's good. You know, I do. I think that's just it's healthy. That's the human mental immune system weeding out pathogens.
Yeah, right. That's true. The media you take in can certainly be a pathogen.
Yeah, man, it is. But again, there's a lot of cool shit out there. You know, it's like you can concentrate on that, or you can concentrate on how much cool music there is now, how much great comedy there is now, how many great movies there are now. There's plenty of things to concentrate on. It's like there's just the problem is there's a lot of people, their business is division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that song? Politics and religion causing more division. But it's really government and media causing more division.
It's really money. If there was no money in politics and there was no money in pharmaceutical drugs and there's no money in war, we'd live in a much better place.
Oh, your lips to God's ears on that.
Yeah. It's just we have to move closer to that somehow or another. And whether Bobby Kennedy can help us along those lines and all these other people that are trying very hard to stomp out a lot of this bullshit that we've been experiencing for so long. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, Bobby, I really hope he's able to do some good things because he's certainly a man on a mission and a man who cares deeply.
Yeah.
And I think really heroic how much he stood up for things that he didn't need to talk about, you know, that didn't help him in any way, you know. He just took one arrow after the other over it. You know, to me, even if he was wrong, which I don't think he was, then it's heroic to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and he wasn't wrong. The thing is like I was a victim of that propaganda, and I told him that when I met him and I had him on the show. I said, I always thought you were a kook. I had always heard, I'd bought into it. I just had this sort of cursory examination of what people were saying about you. Like, oh, that guy doesn't believe in vaccines. He's a nut. He's some sort of an anti-science nut who's just a conspiracy theorist. He's just like all these other nutty people.
Right.
And then I read his book, and I was like, okay, well, this book is real. Why isn't he getting sued? If it's not real, why is he getting sued? Why if all these things he's saying about Anthony Fauci during the AIDS crisis, if that's not true, why is he not getting sued? I would sue the fuck out of him if he lied about me and said that I was vaccinating foster kids with experimental drugs that were killing them. I would sue you if that was not true. Like, hey, you fucking liar, I never did that. This is a lie. You can't prove, but it's not a lie. And
if it was a lie, he'd get sued. If it being truth, they just ignored it.
Yeah.
But man, that is a heavy tome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's some info in there just blew my mind. You know, like the way Fauci was able to get these principal investigators from like all these respectable colleges and put them on these committees that ended up saying, yeah, this is the vaccine we'll use. This is we'll use AZT. He started with the AZT thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, AZT was known to be a highly toxic, really ineffective drug.
Yeah.
And, of course, but that was the one they picked. And so they started using that again. And I don't know how many people that killed. That killed friends of mine, you know. AZT was very toxic, and they finally had to yank it.
Yeah.
And now they use different chemical cocktails. But, like, Fauci did some extraordinarily evil shit. And he knows what he did.
He was the villain of the Dallas Buyers Club, that movie. That was about people trying to seek alternative treatments to deal with AIDS.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's Fauci.
Right.
That's AZT.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson got on AZT and it was killing him, and he got off of it.
Yeah. And he's still alive. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bummer. It's just a bummer that someone had that kind of power for so long. It was such a fucking monster. Yeah. Did you see that little meme that went around? And it was right after he got first time anyone ever got pre-pardoned.
Yeah.
And you said nothing says trust science like a blanket pre-pardon.
Yeah.
A picture of Fauci.
Well, the problem with that pre-pardon is he's pre-pardoned federally, but he's not pre-pardoned state-wise. These states can still sue him. Not only that, when you're pardoned, then you can no longer plead the fifth. So you could be held for perjury. So there's a lot of issues with being pardoned that I don't think Biden took into consideration or Fauci took into consideration either. I think he just wanted anything to protect him because he knew it was coming. He knew that just the emails that were available that showed collusion where he had gotten a hold of all these different researchers and changed their perspective on whether or not it was a lab leak. Because through Eco Health Alliance, they had funded gain-of-function research after Obama
gain-of-function.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to think.
For.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
But gain-of-function is essentially taking a virus and making it more infectious to human beings.
Weaponizing the virus.
Yeah. The idea is supposedly to study it, but if you're studying it and you don't have a fucking cure, you've been studying this shit for so long and you don't have a cure, like what are you actually doing? Well, you're doing weapons research. This is one of the things that Bobby's talked about with Lyme disease, where they tried to get him on Lyme disease, which is a very funny grilling. They say, did you say that Lyme disease was a leaked bioweapon? He goes, I probably did. And he did. Plum Island, they were fucking researching whether or not they could infect bugs, fleas, and ticks, and then dump them on populations to overwhelm their medical system and to use it as a bioweapon so we could invade easier. Yeah, they did that.
We're the masters of war.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a funny way. Good impersonation, by the way.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Poor Bobby. I mean, if really science wanted to come fix his fucking voice, man. If that guy had his old voice, he'd be a lot more powerful. It's like people dismiss him because his voice is hard. It's hard to listen to sometimes.
Yeah, that condition he has, you would think there'd be some way to address it, but I don't know.
Well, he believes that condition came from the flu vaccine. It's a side effect of flu vaccines. He used to take a flu vaccine every year. And so he developed this voice problem. And he believes it's a vaccine injury, which is very ironic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those fucking things don't work either. Those things, and he's talked about that. Like, even if it protects you from that one flu, it makes you many more times more likely to catch other things. We're fucking around with complex systems inside human bodies with pharmaceutical drugs that have been, the way they've studied them is filled with shenanigans. They might do 10 studies and one of them shows effectiveness because they've rigged the study in a certain way. And then he explained to me that the reason why they could say it's 100% effective was because one person got it in the vaccine trial and two people got it in the placebo.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
That's 100%.
100%. Better.
One is 100% better than two. Like, what? That's correct. No, that's not. 100% means nobody gets infected, you fucking assholes. That should be a law. That should be a crime to explain things like that. I had this guy on who was, he litigated against pharmaceutical drug companies, particularly against Vioxx, when they released this anti-inflammatory medication Vioxx, and some 50 to 60,000 people died from it. A friend of mine got a stroke from Vioxx. This guy was saying that when you hear peer-reviewed studies, when they do a vaccine study, or a pharmaceutical drug study, they don't even give the peer reviewers the raw data. They give the peer reviewers the data as it's been interpreted by the scientists who work for the pharmaceutical drug companies. So they review it, and then they give their version of it to these other scientists who are already on the payroll. They're all NIH funded. Everybody's together. Everybody's all in the loop. Everybody's dependent upon whether or not they're going to receive grants and funding. It's all based on Fauci, and that's how you find out whether or not something is good or bad. It's all rigged. Yeah. And when he was explaining, I'm like, that can't be real. And he's explaining to us, showing us how it works. And it's corrupt. It's fully, completely, totally corrupt. And if anything Bobby can do, it's make sure that we have valid studies, valid, real, peer-reviewed studies on everything that people are supposed to be taking. Let's find out what the fuck is really good for you, because it's not like all pharmaceutical drugs are bad. A lot of pharmaceutical drugs have helped people, saved people's lives, enhanced people's lives, cured diseases. There's a lot of stuff that's great. Let's find out what it is, what's real and what's bad, and why are you profiting off of shit that's killing people? That shouldn't be so hard, would he?
I'd vote for you, dude.
Oh, I don't want to run for nothing.
No, I know it'd be a step down. Why would you? Yeah.
No.
Just headache in your life. But I'm just saying, I would vote for you.
Thanks. That's terrifying. Yeah.
You want to have those days where you just have a lie-in. You know what I mean? Not getting up till maybe noon. You can't have that if you were president.
No.
You don't get one day like that.
No, unless you're Biden. I think he slept a lot. But he wasn't really the president.
That's maybe.
Yeah, that's what's really wild. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm encouraged. And I also think things are going to get really weird with AI. I think with AI, and especially when AI gets attached to quantum computing, we're going to have an undeniable access to truth that's going to be very disconcerting to a lot of people. We're going to have an understanding of the reality of the world that we live in that's going to be very undeniable. And it's going to be strange. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of propaganda that's with that too, because a lot of this AI is programmed by people. So there'll be a battle of which AI is the most trusted and effective, and then the real fear is that AI governs us, which is probably going to happen. We're probably going to be more effective.
No. The government so far has really been subpar.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't look at individual presidents, because I just look at, like, overall, the presidents have to bow down and kiss the ring, no matter who it is, or you're not getting in there.
Right.
So, the last guy who didn't was probably John Kennedy.
Yeah.
But certainly even a guy like Carter, who I love, I consider the best, Everybody has to kiss the ring. So
he didn't kiss it enough. That's why they got rid of him.
Well, what he did, he levied a windfall profits tax on the oil companies because they were gouging. They were making so much profit, right?
Yeah.
Which happens all the time, whether it be the oil companies or what, or the vaccine companies, whatever. These insane, profits that are just, they create some fear and then boom.
Yeah.
They make a lot of money. And so, but he was bold enough to lay this tax on them for their profit, and that's what killed him. There was no way he was getting another term after that.
Yeah. It'd
be
interesting.
And then it was after that Oliver North was vital in helping to kill that rescue attempt with the helicopter.
Uh-huh.
And
also the Contras versus the Sandinistas, they selling crack in Los Angeles in order to fund all that shit. All that stuff was going on at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally believe that.
Oh, it's fact.
Absolutely.
I had Freeway Ricky Ross, the guy who went to jail for it, on the podcast a few times.
Oh, was he the guy, the plane? He had the planes and he was flying?
No, that was Gary Webb. That was Gary Webb. The guy was flying into Mena, Arkansas.
Gary Webb, right.
Yeah.
It's a character.
Oh, no, Barry Seal. Gary Webb was the reporter who committed suicide. Didn't he shoot himself in the head twice? Yeah, that's right. Barry Seal. Thank you,
the
Jamie.
first one would have slowed down the second bullet a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, he was one of the main whistleblowers about that. Yeah, there's it's a sordid, horrible history. But Freeway Ricky Ross was, unbeknownst to him, was selling cocaine, funding this war. And he didn't even know what was going on until he went to jail. He couldn't read. He went to jail, became literate, and then became a lawyer in jail, and then figured out that they tried him on the 3 strikes rule incorrectly, got out of jail. And, now he runs weed dispensaries in California.
Really?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Where does he live?
He lives in L.A., yeah.
Oh,
he's a great guy.
You got to connect me to him. I want to meet him.
You know Rick Ross, the rapper? He stole
Yeah.
his name from Freeway Rick Ross.
Oh.
Rick Ross was a famous like street gangster, this famous street coke dealer who was making millions of dollars a week, and couldn't read. He was a tennis player, a really good tennis player, who then used the discipline of being a tennis player to become a very disciplined drug dealer.
Ah.
Yeah. Just
Like Pfizer, disciplined drug dealer.
yeah, and now he's out. And wonderful guy to talk to. Fun guy, like very happy, peaceful guy. And I mean, what a story. Learned how to read in jail and then realized that they fucked him and then tried his own case and got out.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. My daughter is a lawyer. She's a public defender in Manhattan. She loves it.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And so she's helping a lot of people who are at a kind of a pivotal point in their lives where it could just be,
Yeah.
you know, they can't get her unless they have no money. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
right.
like they're already in dire straits, and she just she loves helping people.
That's
man.
beautiful.
She's an incredible kid. I'm so proud of her.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way to live your life.
And I'm like, you're going to be a lawyer? And then it's like, oh, a lawyer that makes no money. Bravo. Bravo.
Isn't it crazy? Like we all think like, you know, lawyers are all evil. No, there's great lawyers. My good friend Josh
Yeah.
Dubin, he used to work for the Innocent Project. Now he works with Ike Perlmutter, and we've had a bunch of podcasts where we've highlighted innocent people who were incarcerated. And just through this podcast, we've got a bunch of people released.
Dude, that's doing something great.
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. He's like
Yeah.
completely dedicated his life to wrongly incarcerated people.
What's his name?
Josh Dubin,
Where's he live?
Florida. He was a New York guy. Moved to Florida fairly recently.
Wow.
Yeah, great guy. Love him to death, and does nothing but great work, just helping people, just constantly concentrating on all these different cases where it's like, you know, corrupt DAs, corrupt prosecutors, corrupt judges. It's like, you know, it's all over the place. Like one of the guys that Biden pardoned was one of the people that was involved in that Kids for Cash, where they were putting kids in detention centers just for profit.
Oh.
Yeah, you know that story, right?
I don't know.
There was a judge, was it Pennsylvania? Yeah, there was a judge in Pennsylvania that was making millions of dollars through putting kids in detention centers and ruining kids' lives, causing suicides, deaths, downward spiral of their life, like wrongfully detaining them and
But how
doing
is
it for
he
profit.
how is he getting a kickback?
He's getting kickbacks from private prisons.
Oh, from private prisons?
Yeah, from private prisons, from prosecutors, I mean, I don't know exactly who was funding it, but he was convicted, and he's one of the guys Biden pardoned.
Oh, really? It's sick.
Biden pardoned like 8,000 people.
Did he?
Yeah, he pardoned more people than anybody. Which generally I'm a fan of pardoning people. I think most people are incarcerated for far too long. I don't think it rehabilitates people. I think it probably makes them more hardened criminals in most of the cases. There's a few cases where people decide to take a better path in jail and educate themselves and learn and come out a better person. And I've met a lot of those people. And unfortunately, I've met a lot of those people from Josh Dubin that were wrongly incarcerated and then came out these amazing, incredibly intelligent, really well-read, interesting people because they dedicated themselves to doing that while they were in jail. Because they realized, like, I did not commit this crime. I'm forced into this situation. What can I do to make better of my life while I'm here? Well, I'm going to educate myself, and I'm going to come out a better person.
That's great. By the way, I wouldn't mind a pre-pardon. I mean, just you do whatever you want. You're speeding,
Pre-pardons are
whatever.
great.
I got a pre-pardon, dude.
There's a lot of people that got pre-pardons. They were
Yeah.
like, how did Adam Schiff get a pre-pardon? Why is Liz Cheney get a pre-pardon? Like, what did you do? What did you do that you need
But
a pardon?
also, that's never happened before. There's never been a pre-pardon. I
No.
mean, how can you pardon someone if they haven't been convicted of something?
Well, there's a lot of debate on the constitutionality of it, too, like whether or not
Yeah.
that's even what the pardons were intended for. And that was the thing during the 2020 like when Trump was leaving the office. You know, there was talk about what if he pre-pardons his family? That would be outrageous, and all the Democrats were out against it. And then, of course, when Biden did it, everybody just shut up. He pre-pardoned his son from 2014 or something? 11?
Ford gave Nixon a pre-pardon.
Oh, what a good guy.
Yeah. That was necessary.
Yeah.
That was a pre-pardon?
He was never charged.
Seemed like a post-pardon at that point.
He was about to be charged, and he was never.
What was Gerald Ford going to be charged? Or
No,
so
Nixon.
Nixon.
Watergate scandal.
What?
Oh,
For the
Watergate.
yeah.
Yeah. That's another one. The Watergate one's a weird one too, because the lead guy was an intelligence agent who was all of a sudden a reporter.
Here's the pre-pardon list. George W. Bush gave some to the Iran-Contra affair people.
Oh,
They were
what a
just
good
talking
guy.
About.
Casper Weinberger. There you go.
Abraham Lincoln, which is the Civil War.
Abraham Lincoln did. During the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln preempted pardons, part of the broader strategy to maintain national unity. Oh, okay. Extended to Confederate sympathizers and soldiers. Okay. As an incentive to lay down arms and support the Union.
Jimmy
A little
Carter
different.
for the Vietnam draft.
Yes. Well,
Whoa.
that was a good one.
So there's a few, but not like the same reasons.
I remember I was a kid. I was living in San Francisco when the Vietnam War ended. My parents were hippies. We were living in like Haight-Ashbury, like the like down near Lombard Street, in the middle of like hippie San Francisco. And I remember thinking, whew, as a little kid, thinking, wow, finally the war's over. I don't have to think about war anymore. I'm like, people are going to learn from this. I really believe that. You know?
You are, because you're a hopeful person.
Also, I was 10.
Yeah.
Or whatever I was.
Most 10-year-olds, I guess, are pretty hopeful. But
Yeah, well, you're terrified because I had thought of the idea of being drafted. Like, in 8 years from now, can I be drafted and have to go and fight for some fucking insane war that makes no sense? And if you don't, they put you in a cage. Like, that was the reality of life in the 1960s when they had conscription.
yeah.
That's scary shit, man. You know, being forced to give up your life to go fight in some fucking insane war that makes sense. It's probably about heroin. Probably had a lot to do with heroin trade.
Well, yeah, they say that bombing in Laos was a lot of that on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. A lot of that had to do with that avenue for heroin there
Yeah.
on that Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Well, how about Afghanistan?
Yeah, Afghanistan. Yeah, that can't be a coincidence. Poppies there and poppies there.
Not only that, we were guarding poppy fields. We were, because we needed, these farmers need to grow poppies. This is how they make a living. We got to help them. We got to fight the Taliban. Then, it's 90+% of the world's opium is coming from this area. Like, what?
90%?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I
I think it's
didn't realize it was that
94. I think it was 94% of the world's heroin was coming from Afghanistan while we were occupying Afghanistan.
Really?
Oh,
And now
yeah.
where's it coming from?
Probably Afghanistan still.
No, it's safe. It's secure.
I mean, the Taliban were the people that were against it, which is wild. 2021, Afghanistan produced more than 90% of the world's illicit heroin. However, Myanmar has since surpassed Afghanistan. Wow. Didn't Myanmar just have a giant coup? Didn't they have a military takeover of Myanmar? I think they did. I'm pretty sure because, yeah.
Yeah,
Burma.
Maybe it's follow the drugs instead of follow the money.
Yeah.
Same thing, maybe.
Yeah. Myanmar coup. Just write coup. Yeah, 4 years after the coup. Atrocity crimes. Yeah. 4 years after the coup, chaos reigns as Myanmar's military struggles. Yeah, they're probably taking control. I mean, if you've got a place where now they've taken over the heroin production of the world, and then all of a sudden you have a military coup, shocking.
Right.
Crazy.
It does seem to follow along these routes.
Yeah. It's too many things to concentrate on. That's the problem. And we're all getting inundated every day with terrible news from all over the world. And on one side, it makes people more accountable because now you know all the terrible things that are going on all over the world. But another thing, it's unmanageable. If you're one human being living in Austin, your phone is blowing up all day with atrocities that are happening all over the world. You're like, what can I do? What is life? Everything's terrible. Meanwhile, you go to the coffee shop, everybody's nice. You go to the restaurant, say hi to. It's like my world seems pretty fucking normal, but but when you're inundated constantly, so you're in this constant state of anxiety and weirdness, and
I know it's not a good thing, but I think that's why I stay away from the media. I don't read newspapers. I don't, I just try to stay away because it's that toxifying element. It can really, and granted, it keeps me ignorant.
Yeah.
But they do say ignorance is bliss, and I feel pretty blissful. So, I mean.
Well, as long as somebody's paying attention, I guess it's okay.
Well, I mean, about some of these items we've been discussing, I've actually, studied this. So there's things but there's other things that I just can't get hit every day with like 90 things that are so depressing,
Do you go on social media at all?
No. I do have, what's the Zuckerberg? Instagram. But because, they make you like you have to give us all your information and access to your picture. So I can't personally get on the Instagram. But if I have a picture, I have to get someone else to post the picture.
Yeah.
So
that's probably healthier.
Yeah. Huh?
That's probably healthier.
Yeah.
Than being on it all the time. Because I know a lot of people that are on it all the time, and it makes them sick. It's like radiation poisoning.
Yeah. I'm pretty much never on it.
That's good.
But I should post more. I post like once every 6 months or something. But no, I don't know. I'd rather have an alt to Instagram.
So how do you
what
find
do you
out
think
about
of a good alt?
An alt? I don't know. But the problem is, well, X is what I use the most as far as like getting information. But every now and then I'll go on and watch people argue and see like these toxic fights back and forth, and that puts me in a shitty mood. And I'm like, God damn, why do people fucking treat each other like this? Like, it's like such a stupid way to communicate.
Yeah. It's so disheartening.
And it's also, it amplifies the worst aspects of our society, which is like shitty division. It's like shitty division is what gets a lot of clicks. Partisan thoughts and attacking people, tribal thinking. That's what gets the most clicks, and that's what you see the most. But there's enough of exposing of actual legitimate corruption and information about what's actually going on in the world that I get out of there that it balances it out for me to the point where I'm willing to engage in it to a certain extent. But I don't do it at night, and I don't do it when I think it's gonna like fuck me up before I go to bed. I don't do it if there's anything I really have to concentrate on, because I don't want some new pathway to open up in my mind where now I'm concerned about this.
Right, yeah. But all of that adversity you faced, do you feel like it actually increased your popularity?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely did.
Oh.
Yeah. Like during the COVID stuff when they were trying to get me removed from Spotify, in that 1 month I gained 2 million subscribers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the height of the attacks on me, the show got way bigger. Yeah.
Right. So how many people listen to that Robert Malone show, would you say?
That's a good question. Between Spotify, YouTube, and all the clips, fucking, who knows, hundreds of millions probably.
Oh, great.
Yeah. A good show that gets spread around, like how many different eyeballs will see it. I mean, it really depends on how profound the person's revelations are, like what they're talking about. Like, like the biggest one we ever did, some of the I think the biggest one we probably ever did was Bob Lazar. Is that number one? So the Bob Lazar one, do you know who Bob Lazar is? Bob Lazar is the guy that in 1989, he did an interview with George Knapp in Las Vegas, and he said he was working back engineering UFOs for the government. And he has this crazy fucking story about working at Area S4, Site 4, and Area 51 in the Nevada desert, which at that point in time, the government would deny that Area 51 even existed. And he's like, no, I work out there, and I was working back engineering propulsion systems from crashed UFOs. And he was explaining how these things work and explaining how it's some sort of a gravity propulsion device that works completely different than any propulsion device that we've ever devised, and that they're trying to back engineer them. They don't know how to do it, so they keep bringing in new propulsion experts. So he was a guy that had previously worked at Los Alamos Labs, and then he gets a job, and they're essentially throwing as much shit against the wall as possible, trying to see what sticks. Like, can you figure this out? And they're bringing in new people. And he was brought in apparently allegedly after an accident where they tried to cut into the reactor and it exploded and people died. And so they said, okay, well, that's not going to work. Let's try another method, bring in some other people. And he was one of the people they brought in. And when you have top secret clearance, what happens is they tap all your phones. They listen to you all the time. Well, he had this job where he couldn't tell his wife what he was doing. So he would get this phone call saying that he has to fly out to Area 51 at like 11 p.m. So he would go to the airport, fly out, and his wife was like, this motherfucker's cheating on me. So she starts fucking her flight instructor. She's got some flight instructor. And so because his wife was having an affair and they knew it from the phone calls, they thought that he was going to be emotionally unstable. So they removed him from the project. So he gets removed from the project and he says, well, I'm telling my friends. So he goes to tell his friends, like, this is what I was doing. I was working on these fucking UFOs. They have actual UFO. That's the one. That thing on the desk right there, that's the recreation of what he called the sport model that they worked on that has this flying saucer that's behind the antlers.
That's like the three.
The classic.
It's like the Tesla 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If you were to...
Yeah, the classic.
The peppy little...
The sport model.
Got it.
So he brings people out to watch. He said on Wednesday they have these flights and they test these things. I'll take you guys out to the desert. He took them out to the desert. He takes them a couple of times. Then he gets arrested. So he gets arrested and he says, they're going to fucking kill me. I have to go public. So he goes public and tells the whole story. And so he does these series of interviews with George Knapp, who's an investigative reporter in Las Vegas, and they become legendary. He's told the same story for now going on 40 years. And it's an insane
But he's
story.
still alive.
He's still alive. Yeah, he did my podcast. So he did the podcast, and I don't know what to think. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. It's hard to know. But he's told the same goddamn story for all these years, and he's obviously a brilliant guy. When
Yeah.
you talk to him, he's obviously very literate in science, really understands what he's saying. And many of the things that he said from that particular interview have been corroborated by other people, including his knowledge of Los Alamos Labs. They tried to say he never worked there, but they found him on the employee roster, and he knows the building. He took people into the building. He took George Knapp in there. He knew the security guards. He knew where to go, showing everybody around the place. And
Wow.
that's our biggest podcast ever because it's so fucking nuts. There's an incredible Jeremy Corbell did an incredible documentary called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers, and it's all about his experiences there. And it's one of those things where you just you don't know, but it's so weird. It's like if this guy's telling the same goddamn story, and then they have all these videos of these things. That the Go Fast video and the FLIR video that the government's released that were covered in the New York Times. And these crafts are exhibiting the same sort of behavior that he was explaining in 1989.
Yeah.
Particularly, and they fly like this, but then when they want to go fast, they rotate sideways and point whatever this gravity propulsion, whatever this thing is, this generator, and they shoot this way, shoo, and take off. And there's videos of these things doing this.
Wow.
40 years later.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's the biggest video. So that video
I'm gonna
on
listen to that.
YouTube got 60 million views, and then on all the other platforms, who knows how many, and all the clips, it's probably hundreds of millions. Yeah.
Lazar.
But it's one of those things where you don't want to think too much about it because it might be bullshit. You know? That's how I feel about the whole UFO thing.
But what would be his point? What's his motivation? Like,
It's a good question.
I don't see how it benefits him other than he's got now people calling him a wacko. Which he didn't have before. So
Right.
what's the good of it?
Right. That's a good.
You
Well,
know, you always got to look at possible motivation.
well, there's a lot of people that want to pretend to be special, and so they make up stories so that make them special. They make up encounters. They make up abductions. I've been abducted by aliens. I'm a special person. They took me aboard. I have a message for humanity. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of delusions.
Right. That's a different thing.
Right.
I mean, a guy like that, I don't see his, if that's what he actually did for a living, then I don't see why
Why he would do that.
How he benefits.
Well, one of the more interesting stories is this guy's. This is Travis Walton. This guy's got a little bobblehead. Travis Walton was a guy, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Fire in the Sky. It was based on a bunch of loggers in Arizona, and they saw this thing land. And this guy Travis Walton gets out of the truck and goes to it, and gets blasted by this bolt of energy, collapses to the ground. His buddies take off. They're screaming in the car, all these loggers, like, we got to go back and get him. We got to go back and get him. They turn around a mile later, go back. He's gone. He's gone for 5 days. And then he shows up back in the town 5 days later with this fucking wild story of being abducted, taken aboard this craft. They healed his body, and then they communicated with him and then returned him. And the thing about it is, like, all these experiences, these people talk about the exact same creatures. They talk about the exact same entities, these things with big heads and large eyes and spindly bodies, and they're communicating telepathically. It's like it's universal. It's like over and over again. It's a very similar story. And the problem is, if it happened to you, who the fuck is going to believe you? It's a unique experience, a completely novel experience that only you have. And then you have to go and try to make sense of it to other people that haven't experienced it, and they're going to think you're fucking crazy. But if you have enough of these people that say the same story over and over and over again, which is, if you read John Mack, he was a psychologist from Harvard that did a lot of hypnotic regression work with people that have had alien abductions. And this guy was
I read that.
Did you ever read that? It's a crazy book,
I met
right?
him. I met John.
Did you really?
Yeah.
When did you meet him?
I met him on the campus at Harvard.
Oh, wow.
You know I went to Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had a great night, and then went back home. No, I only visited there a couple times.
Well, I know you play really good chess.
I did play chess.
Magnus
You play?
Carlsen told me.
Huh?
I had Magnus Carlsen in a couple days ago.
Oh, really?
He told me that you did one of his opening moves, that you
Yeah.
did it for him. And he was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, he couldn't even figure out why you did that. But he realized afterwards, like, oh, you're a really good chess player. That was actually a legitimate move. You did his opening, right?
Well, yeah. I did one time. I did an opening for the other guy. What's his name? Anyway, and I'm gonna do this opening, and at the same time, I want to tip over with my pinky, tip over the king, just as a joke, you know, because you tip over the king, the game's over, right? So, I did that, but then and there was kind of a chuckle and everything, and picked it up, and then he's
right
looking
here?
quite concerned. Oh yeah, this was it. Look.
Hear the lady. Isn't it an announcer?
Yeah, I hit it. I knocked it down, and
As a
then I
joke.
pushed it. Yeah, they slow it down. You can see it. But then I pushed the pawn, right? And then I realized, because I thought he said D4, right? He didn't say D4. He said E4. So you know, I'm looking at his face, and he had whispered it to me into my bad ear. And I'm like, well, man, you know, why do you got to whisper? I'm going to make the move anyway. Like,
Well, Magnus
So
said you
then
stuck
it
around
was
and you played a lot of
embarrassing.
people, and he said you were really good.
oh, that's very nice.
Coming from
Magnus
him.
Carlsen. Wow.
Yeah.
He's the Mozart, man.
Yeah. Fascinating guy. He was here a
Yeah.
couple days ago.
Was he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do admire him. He's great. And that whole thing, you know, that just happened with the genes, like that was great. Did you see it?
With
you know,
him?
he went to one of the big I forget which tournament it was, but anyway, came in jeans. And they're very strict, right? And so they wouldn't allow him to play. And then so he basically was going to end up sacrificing the day because he came in jeans, right? He said, I just wasn't thinking about it, you know. Well, so then he's just like, you'll have to come back tomorrow. You're sacrificed for today. He's like, you know what? I won't be back tomorrow. And then, boom, they changed the rules.
Oh, wow.
They changed it.
Yeah, that's a stupid rule.
Yeah,
Who gives a shit if you're wearing jeans?
I know. That
should be able to
doesn't
play in a
make you
bikini.
a better or worse player. You
Yeah,
know,
it's stupid. Everybody should be able to have to play in their underwear. That way you know they don't have any devices on them.
right.
You know, you're not
But
doing
they
anything.
could have it in them, too.
They could, yeah.
So maybe you got to do a rectal probing before. This is full circle with the talking about the aliens. But, you know, maybe you have to do something before.
Well, we got into very specific ways that people cheat. It was pretty interesting. He was talking to us about different ways that people have been busted cheating, different people signaling them in the room, moving to different parts of the room if they wanted the piece to move in a different area.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that one guy he said was cheating. He said he knew as soon as the move was made, and then he walked out.
Yeah.
That was another time.
Yeah.
He just like, there's no way this guy made this move. No chance.
Well, that was what was fascinating, that you could tell by the way a guy's playing that something was amiss, that this is not inside of his capability. He knew the way the guy played so well that you could tell that something was off, which is so crazy. Which is, I'm not literate in chess, so I don't understand how you could do that, but I believe him. Especially when you talk to him, like,
well, he's got a thumper in his sock or something. Somebody's giving him
he thinks
looking
it's
on
an
a
earpiece.
computer and then dun.
He thinks it's an internal ear, like a very small, invisible earpiece that they put in.
Is that what
you.
he thought?
Yeah. That's what he thinks. He thinks that one of the possible methods. And then there was the anal beads. People were talking about anal beads.
Anal beads. It's a guy don't want a thumper in his sock. He just wants to go pure inside man.
Yeah, I guess it would like vibrate. I guess you would do it like vibrate a certain amount of times first to indicate the letter, and then a couple times to indicate the number. And that's where the piece would go.
A little Morse code in the rectal cavity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been playing chess?
I started playing more probably like 10 years ago, or maybe more than that. I started playing Willie.
Oh, wow.
Started playing Willie all the time. But then we'd switch over back to dominoes. He crushes me in dominoes, and then I was mostly winning chess. And then toward the end of our battles, he started switching to just, you know what, we'll just stay with the dominoes. Such a hustler.
Such a hustler. Yeah. I tried to interview him, but he's scared of COVID.
Yeah.
He's an old guy, I get it.
He's 92.
Can't take a chance getting infected. And, that a lot of old people, I got it. I got the fear because it's like death is close to them. It's just they're too vulnerable. I get it. I get why they got roped into it.
Well, yeah, the fear of germs. That
was the Neil Young thing too. That's why I gave Neil Young a pass. I was like, I get it.
A lot of people you still see wearing masks.
All the time, even in Austin.
Yeah,
I see them driving their fucking car still with masks on.
Yeah, alone in the car with the mask.
Yeah,
that
they're just sick.
Confuses me. But fear is a fairly relentless occupation for some, and I don't know. I just, I studied the germ theory. You know how it came to be the backbone of Western medicine. Do you know?
The Rockefeller thing?
Well, that came after this. But yeah, the Rockefeller pushed that whole narrative. But it was before that, in the 1887 or something, 89, where Louis Pasteur stood before the French Academy of Science and said, I've realized the origin of all disease, and it's the germ theory. And he took credit for the germ theory, which, of course, had been around for centuries at that point. But there was another guy named Antoine Béchamp who was actually a real genius, whereas Pasteur was a charlatan and he basically stole all these good ideas that he never had from Antoine Béchamp, including how fermentation works, how they had diseases in the grapes of at the time, so how to deal with that disease, and also having to do with where they make the silk, like silkworms and stuff. That also was another thing that Béchamp figured out, and then Pasteur, who's on the same committee, ends up reading these papers and basically kind of putting his own spin on it and getting credit for, the fermentation, the silkworm, the wine thing. Like each thing, he becomes more and more famous, and until he's able to sit down in front of Napoleon in 1863, Napoleon III, he said, I will eliminate all disease. I will eradicate all human disease. He was an arrogant guy, and he was a complete fraud. And
Isn't that a bummer?
And Pasteur believed the germ theory, obviously. That's the theory that he pushed, right? And then Béchamp believed in the terrain theory. Now, that's what I believe. The terrain theory, the germ theory, obviously, a pathogen, a germ, a virus, whatever, it lands in your cornflakes or on your eyeball or whatever. It gets inside you.
Right.
And then in this pristine blank slate environment, it causes damage, maybe sickness, and eventually death. To me, I don't believe this theory as much as I do the terrain theory, which is that your health is dependent upon your internal biological terrain and your internal filthiness or cleanliness. And so that's what I believe is where people's immune system gets messed up from what they're consuming. And in a nutshell, that's why I believe in Béchamp's theory as opposed to the germ theory. Mm-hmm. And at least it's got to be both. At the very least, it's got to be both.
I would imagine it's both. I mean, we know for a fact that one of the main factors in eliminating diseases in North America was when they started having hygiene and when they started having flowing water and sewage systems, and that just having cleanliness. I mean, most cities at the turn of the century were filled with filth. I mean, during the smallpox epidemic, people lived terrible. They lived in filth. When you had various, like there's a bunch of different diseases that could be attributed to poor hygiene. Poor hygiene, no access to antibiotics, no access to any kind of medicine. And we all attribute that just to a disease broke out. But why did the disease break out? Well, the people were living in filth. There was no running water. They didn't have any sewage systems. They didn't have any sort of antibiotics, and including like people talk about the Spanish flu. Like, if the Spanish flu broke out today, we'd be fucked. No, we wouldn't. First of all, we have antibiotics now. Spanish flu would be killed quickly. It's the real factor was all these diseases that people were getting because of the infection that could be cured by antibiotics. But
I'm not a big antibiotics guy.
At all?
No, I mean, I took them. One time. I credit them with really having saved me. But
they'll save you under certain conditions.
Right. If your immune system's shot and there's nothing else you can do to bolster your immune system in a short amount of time, where whatever is happening quickly.
But you're saying like ubiquitous use of antibiotics for everything.
Yeah, where it's just like
that's probably not a
it's
good
like
idea.
a Pez dispenser that
right.
and it does affect your immune system adversely, especially continuous use of antibiotics.
It's also why we have MRSA.
What?
MRSA. MRSA is medication-resistant staph infections.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
okay.
I've had a bunch of friends who get that because that's one of the side effects. One of the unfortunate aspects of jiu-jitsu is a lot of guys get staph infections. You know, if you're not clean, you're
because
not taking
of
care
what?
of getting scratched and scraped up, and you're on the ground, dirty mats. People come in dirty, and you can get an infection. I've had staph twice. You get staph, ringworm, a bunch of different things that people normally get on the mat. But there's ways to combat that in a healthy, organic way. And one of the best ways is the use of there's a bunch of different oils, tea tree oil and eucalyptus oil, a bunch of oils that don't affect your skin biome in a negative way. But what they do is they protect you from bad diseases. And there's a company called Defense Soap. And I always recommend it. I don't have any affiliation with them. My friend Guy Sacco runs the company, but he developed it because a bunch of wrestlers and grapplers were getting skin infections. And so he developed natural remedies that don't affect your, because a lot of times guys would take like antibiotic soap and they would clean themselves with antibiotic soap. The problem with that is it kills all your healthy flora, all the skin flora that's healthy. That gets torched too. It's taking a blowtorch to, like a small patch of weeds that you could just pluck out.
Right.
And instead of doing that, he developed this soap that uses all these natural organic remedies that doesn't affect you in a negative way at all. It's the only soap I use. I use that soap every day, and it keeps your skin healthy and it doesn't fuck it up. So there's ways around it. The real way is to prevent it, though, because once you actually get staph, especially if it's aggressive, you got to take antibiotics or you're fucked.
Well,
it gets systemic.
Yeah,
My friend's wife.
Sorry, go ahead.
My friend, his friend's wife rather, died of it. She was trying to do it organically. She was trying to use herbal remedies, and she wound up dying of staph infection because it gets systemic.
Did.
Yeah, it gets into your blood and goes into your whole body, and then you're fucked. I mean, you really have to get on a heavy, hardcore IV antibiotics for long stretches of time. So I've had friends that have huge scars on their body because they got a massive MRSA infection in their knees, and then they had to get it all opened up. They have to clean it out, and they have to get them on IV antibiotics. It's a nightmare, and it's one of the main reasons why people die after surgeries. It happens after surgeries where people get MRSA infections.
Yeah, well, Jesus, let's
Superbugs.
just stay healthy.
Yes, stay healthy, Woody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you eat only vegetables? Is that what you're talking about, like meat? Are you a vegan?
I'm a vegan.
Yeah?
Yeah. But, I mean, I really, my real belief is in raw living food because I feel like, we talk a lot about you getting your protein or you getting your carbs or whatever. I think the most important component of the food are the enzymes. Mm-hmm. The enzymes being the life force of the food, and the enzymatic activities, your eyes blinking, your heart beating, those are enzymatic activities. If it wasn't for enzymes, we couldn't do them.
Yeah.
Like enzymes are highly important. Anything you cook over 118 degrees for a minute, you destroy the enzymes and most of the nutritional value of the food. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm a believer in raw living food. And I just know from when I've had lots of experiments for when I was doing it and when I was eating a lot of cooked food, and you can really feel the difference. There's no question about it. Supporting the energy of the body better than anything. But meanwhile, I agree that it's very hard to avoid eating cooked food because it's delicious.
Yeah.
But to have as much raw as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. And I try to get a lot of sprouts and microgreens and everything. And then, I also eat, cooked food.
Do you take algae or anything where you're getting B vitamins? Do you think?
Yeah, I take, right. I do take, I take niacin. I should take more of a comprehensive B vitamin probably, but I do take reishi and I take ginseng every day. Yeah.
So healthy mushrooms?
Yeah, I believe
Lion's
in the
mane,
healthy
yeah.
mushrooms. And
I take all that stuff too.
yeah, there's a cool, I got to get on the regular medicinal mushrooms. Those are crucial.
Yes.
And especially brain repair, which is, I think, something I need.
I think we all do.
You fix those pathways
Yeah.
that have been compromised.
Do you ever fuck around with nootropics? Do you take any nootropics?
Like what?
Nootropics are essentially nutrients that contribute to cognitive function, building blocks for human neurotransmitters, acetylcholine, theanine, things along those lines.
No, I don't do that, but
No?
I'm open-minded.
Yeah.
I imagine Downey would know all about that stuff.
Yeah, I bet he would. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really, really knowledgeable about that. But you've studied this shit too, yeah.
Yeah. The thing about it is, like, you could almost take stuff all day long because there's so many different things that could benefit you. You would you'd have to have a fucking stack of shit in front of you all day long, which gets tiresome.
Yeah, I mean, I much prefer. I mean, I think the best thing for restoring health, for if you're sick and you want to get better, is fasting. They've
Fasting
been
is
doing
fantastic
it for
for you.
thousands of years,
Yeah.
and it just works.
It does.
Because
Yeah.
the congestion in the body is really what disease is. It's congestion. And
It's inflammation.
Generally, inflammation. You could call
Yeah.
it that too. But that congestion begins in the colon.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't clean that out. Issues.
Yeah. Do you concern yourself? Do you eat organic vegetables only?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge because I mean I think what is it like 90-something% of people tested have glyphosate in their system. I was reading some study on fucking on Girl Scout cookies. Like how many like they've done studies on Girl Scout cookies where they break
Girl
them down and
Scout
find out
cookies.
what's in them. Oh, holy shit. They're fucking toxic as fuck. It's just so many bad. I'll send it to you, Jamie. 'Cause I sent it to my wife because she's trying to avoid Girl Scout cookies.
See
Because
the
those little
smiling face of
those
the
little
Girl
hustlers.
Scout. You can imagine she's going to give you something bad.
those little hustlers.
Yeah.
They catch you at the grocery store. I'll find this for you, Jamie. There was this thing about. Oh, here it is. The different seed oils, all the different things in them.
This video?
Yeah, it's probably one of them. What does it say here? Thin Mints being the worst offenders. 5 flavors of Girl Scout cookies contained. Scroll up, back up. Contained levels of glyphosate and heavy metals above EPA water safety limits. New investigation found 100% of tested Girl Scout cookies contained glyphosate. 100%. Controversial herbicide and Roundup. 88% contained toxic metals like arsenic, lead, and mercury. Key finding, Thin Mints had the highest glyphosate levels at 111.07 ppb, 334 times what experts say is harmful. Peanut butter patties had the highest heavy metal contamination, with lead reaching 42.5 ppb and aluminum at 27,500 ppb, ppm. 76% of cookies tested exceeded cadmium safety limits, and 96 contained lead.
That's wild.
Girl
man.
Scout
That
USA,
is
which
wild.
sells 200 million boxes per year, $800 million in revenue, did not respond to researchers before publication. I wonder
Didn't
why.
respond.
I wonder why. I wonder why they wouldn't chime in. Isn't that crazy?
Whoa. See, there you go. And by the way, that you could replicate this same thing in so much of the American diet.
What does Girl Scout cookies have to say? Girl Scout cookies are made with ingredients that adhere to food safety standards set by the FDA and other relevant authorities. Oh, really? Our trusted bakers remain committed to compliance with all food safety standards. Maybe we should change the fucking food safety standards. Just because you're
Yeah.
complying with bullshit standards.
Well, that's what I'm hoping is going to happen going forward.
I'm hoping too. I
Yeah.
think, I don't know how much Bobby can affect things and what he actually can do, but I know what he's trying to do. And one of the main things he's trying to do is this whole idea of this Maha movement, make America healthy again. And that's possible. This is something we could do. And
It'd be so nice, dude. And not a lot of, it could be relatively simple. You
Yeah.
know? Just modification. Doesn't have to be a revolution in one's diet, but first thing I'd do is cut out Girl Scout cookies. That's my first thing.
it's crazy that 100% of them have glyphosate. Like, fucking A, man.
Well, the glyphosate is just absolutely crazy. And
Yeah.
it's just still, we know how toxic and terrible it is, and we're still using it constantly.
and other countries aren't.
In corporate, or industrial farming,
Yeah.
it's just wrong. I know you're into regenerative farming. I think that's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
But you see over the long haul, the regenerative farmer gains. He gains financially, and he gains in terms of the soil not just turning to shit.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
you want some shit in your
Yeah,
soil.
you want
Okay, well, let's
actual
not
shit.
get
Manure.
sidetracked.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a net gain in the end. So hopefully,
It's carbon neutral.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to reduce carbon. Organic farms are carbon neutral because that's how nature intended animals to live. That's how nature intended us to grow crops. It's also supposed to be animals graze, manure, all this different stuff. It helps.
Yeah, you got to
helps
think
everything.
of the soil biome just as much as you have to think of your own biome.
Yeah, and it all
Yeah.
works together. And thank God there's people out there like Joel Salatin, who runs Polyface Farms, and Will Harris, who runs White Oak Pastures, who have educated these people and gone on, written books and gone on these tours and explained to be like Will Harris, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. He spent 20 years changing his family farm, which was a industrial farm, into regenerative agriculture, and you can see the difference in the soil. We have two bottles of soil, two glass bottles of soil out there, one from an industrial farm and one from his farm, and his farm is dark and rich and filled with nutrients, and the other one is just pale and dead and just covered in bullshit fucking chemicals.
And meanwhile, that's the stuff that gets highly subsidized.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a catch-22. If the real value, if the real expense of what happens to that soil were experienced by the American taxpayer, I think there'd be a revolt. Well, you never know. We're a lazy people. I'm a lazy bastard.
Well, the real problem is we have so many people that need food, and that we're reliant upon factory farming right now to a large extent, because there's enormous populations of people that that live in a place where they grow nothing. Whether it's New York City or it's Los Angeles, is urban environments, they need food constantly shipped into them, and no one's growing anything, and the population keeps booming, and it's like you got to get these people food. And we right now are dependent upon factory farming for a lot of that food.
Well, I wonder if you could, through regenerative farming, cover it.
I wonder.
Could that ultimately be?
Yeah, I wonder. I think people are definitely going to have to change the way they eat.
It has to change. Well, we at least have to change the way we farm, because otherwise we're going to have just more desertification.
But at least people are aware of it now. At least there's more information and more education about that today than has ever been before. I mean, this was never a discussion when I was a kid. I never heard anything about that. It was just being done, and this is just, you got food and you didn't think about where it came from. And then the term organic came around. Like, what's that? Like, it's no pesticides. Like, what's a pesticide? What's on the food? We didn't know. And back then there was no access to any information other than mainstream media, so it was pretty easy for them to keep going on with these practices unless you went out and sought it out and went and found books, or someone told you about a book. You didn't know. You didn't get that information. I think more people have that information now than ever before. So that's one of the reasons why I'm hopeful. And I think Bobby really does have an idea of how to do this, and I hope he's successful.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. Well, listen, brother, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciated it. I'm very happy to meet you. I've enjoyed your work for so many years, so it's a pleasure to do this. And
pleasure's all mine, dude. I really am. It's a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
My
on.
pleasure. Let's break bread someday. Have
I'd
a good time.
love to.
Hang
Great.
out. Okay.
I'll get your info and
We're
I'll
friends.
give you my email.
All right. Sounds good, brother.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.